Chapter 843. I'm just the type of person who is traveling incognito, and there are other admirals on the way to the Sabaody archipelago, so don't dream that those kids can escape, it's completely wishful thinking. Because of this sentence, Rayleigh was instantly full of flaws, and his whole body was full of loopholes. This light sentence hit him like a heavy mountain. His breathing began to quicken. I must find a time to slip away and help them. Rayleigh quickly made a decision in his heart. His purpose was to help Luffy and others get out of danger, not to have a meaningless battle with Dustless. Just as he was about to retreat, a large amount of light condensed behind Underworld King Rayleigh, blocking his retreat. Get out of my way. Hell King Rayleigh said with a cold expression. He was clearly different from the gentle him from before. His eyes were filled with cold killing intent. Are you angry? But this is also good. How strong will you be when you go all out? It's really exciting. Facing Rayleigh's scolding, Dustless was not angry, but smiled and said, Sorry, I'm a marine, this road is blocked, and the only feasible way to pass is to step on my body. After saying that, the golden cold light that had always been successful rose from the ground and swept straight toward Nether King Rayleigh's rough face. Staring at the cold light, Rayleigh's expression was cold, and the iron sword in his hand also cut through the sky, splashing a white ripple in the void. Boom boom boom. The two swords collided, and the rapid impact spread out, and the surrounding buildings were destroyed. Under this unparalleled absolute impact, all of them turned into a pile of rubble. Clang clang clang, the roar of steel continued, and after each collision, a destructive impact was produced. In just dozens of seconds, the two had fought hundreds of times. This guy. It seems that normal means are useless against him. Hell King Rayleigh said while panting. There was a hint of exhaustion in his tone. Although he was still strong now, it was far from his peak state in the past. Whoosh! His strong and powerful arm swung out, and a silver light flew out, and the sharp edge pulled a long trench on the ground, and the direction was Dustless. This kind of naive attack doesn't work on me. At the moment when he was about to touch and tear Dustless apart, the Kusanagi sword in his hand shone brightly, and the golden light swept out, passing through the overbearing silver slash. Poochie! At the moment when the completely opposite light collided, it was only a moment of stalemate, and Rayleigh's slash collapsed and immediately burst like a flower. Whoosh! A gust of cold wind brushed past his shoulder, and Nether King Rayleigh suddenly disappeared, turning into a tornado and rushing away. If you want to compete with me in speed, I have never lost to anyone in this aspect. A large number of photons once again blocked in front of Underworld King Rayleigh. Warm rays of light floated and condensed together. Dustless, who was holding the Sky Cluster Cloud Sword, flashed again. Humph! Seeing this, Rayleigh's eyes flashed with killing intent, and his momentum rose rapidly, and even the air around him was blown away. Lightspeed kick. After flying out of Dustless's foot, he was close to Rayleigh in an instant, and there was no time to dodge. Boom boom boom, the ground suddenly shook. A blazing mushroom cloud of flames rose into the sky. Soon after, ferocious cracks appeared and swallowed the surrounding unscathed ground like a disorderly spider web. In this explosion, a figure that shouldn't have appeared, but it swept out. Full-body armament hockey? Looking at Rayleigh, who seemed to be splashed with ink, Dustless nodded secretly, but even so, Rayleigh's arm could still see burn marks. Armament hockey is known as a powerful move that can resist all physical attacks, but invulnerability does not mean invincibility. There is also a premise: once the limit of what one can bear is exceeded, one will also be injured. The same is true for Rayleigh now. Check, Brother Charles, who killed you? Just then, an angry and frightened scream resounded through the sky, attracting the attention of Dustless and Nether King Rayleigh. Looking over, it was Chalmer's sister, Shalilia. Tenryubito? Seeing this, Rayleigh said meaningfully. Hearing this, Dustless glanced at Shalilia indifferently, and immediately retracted his gaze and fell on Rayleigh, who was in armament hockey. Do you want to kidnap her as a hostage to threaten me? Underworld King Rayleigh was silent. Pointing to the fatal wound on Charles, Dustless said indifferently, You seem to be a little old, Rayleigh. The fatal burn wound was obviously caused by a fierce attack such as a beam of light. You killed a Tenryubito? Rayleigh's indifferent face loosened, and he said incredulously, "When Dustless killed Charles, he was not present, so he didn't know." Killing a Tenryubito, even a Marine admiral, will have a disaster. Hearing this, Dustless just sneered with a cold face and said indifferently, "You are right, killing a Tenryubito, even a Marine admiral can't bear it. But if a Tenryubito killed a Tenryubito, what do you think will happen?" Chapter 844. What do you think will happen if Tenryubito kills Tenryubito? This sentence made Rayleigh speechless. His dry lips squirmed. He wanted to refute, but he was surprised to find that he was speechless. The law of this world stipulates that anyone who challenges the authority of Tenryubito will be surrounded and suppressed by Marine admirals. However, this is only limited to humans. Dustless, as a Tenryubito, is not subject to legal sanctions. It is ineffective against him. Rumble. At this moment, the mini Den Den Mushi in his trouser pocket suddenly rang and stood up. Looking at the lazy Den Den Mushi, Dustless instantly understood who it was. "What's the matter, Borsellino?" It was Borsellino who contacted Dustless on the phone. "Really, if I knew you were in the Sabaody archipelago, I wouldn't have to bother to go there. I heard that the Tenryubito there was beaten. Did you catch the criminal?" Borsellino's words were full of curiosity as he dared to beat Tenryubito. "Sorry, you are a step late. That guy Charles is dead." Staring at the dead Tenryubito Charles, Dustless said expressionlessly, "What dead?" The lazy tone was instantly restrained. Kizaru asked as if he had seen a ghost. Fighting a celestial dragon is the kind of person who is not afraid of death. Now, killing a celestial dragon is definitely not something a human should do. "Have you caught the murderer? Don't let him run away. Otherwise, Gorosei, Sengoku, and Tenryubito will not let us go." Kizaru said gloomily. "Run? Why should I run? I am the one who sent Charles to heaven." After that, without waiting for Kizaru to talk nonsense, Dustless closed the Den Den Mushi and looked up. He was greeted by a more ferocious chop than before, like a storm sweeping toward him. Katon. Great fire annihilation. After the lightning-like printing, the boundless sea of fire roared out of Dustless's mouth, reaching a shocking range of 100 meters in diameter. The blazing flame instantly annihilated the ferocious chop. Got it. At this moment, there was a ghastly and strange cold wind behind him. Looking up, he saw a black steel monster rushing toward Dustless at a speed beyond human cognition. The iron sword in his hand was different from before. It turned into a deep black color. "Old man, you're already so old, yet you can still play so happily. To be honest, you've really impressed me. Perhaps that's what it means to be old but still young." Looking straight ahead, Dustless didn't even turn his head. His body simply spewed out evil golden light, condensing into a huge skeleton to protect Dustless. Clang! The sharp cold light covered with armament hockey swept across and cut straight to the mysterious skeleton. Kakaka. Under the full impact, the skeleton, Rayleigh saw this scene. Ray showed a happy smile. Since the start of the battle, he had been suppressed by Dustless in all aspects. Even his ability to talk was not as good as Dustless. But after laughing for a while, Underworld King Rayleigh's face suddenly stiffened. Buzzing. Chakra erupted again like a spring, and the skeleton full of cracks healed instantly. Not only that, but it also strangely became a lot bigger. A man in his 60s or 70s can still be so young and energetic. He smashed Konsusanu's defense, although it is partial. It's still amazing. Good dance, old man. Turning his head, Dustless calmly looked at Dark King Rayleigh. Staring at Rayleigh's sluggish face, his handsome face twisted like a ghost's in an instant. "However, you don't know when to stop. You seem to be a little arrogant, old man." The voice containing monstrous killing intent was like a rolling thunder, and it reached Rayleigh's ears, making his thoughts suddenly stop, and his whole person stood in place sluggishly. "Are you done? If you're done messing around, then go to sleep obediently. I don't want to see your face again in the future." His pupil rolled sharply, and his left eye rotated at high speed. The dark eye was instantly swallowed by the nine tomo, and it was full of indescribable oppression. The piercing killing intent spread out. Rayleigh retreated like a conditioned reflex, staring at Dustless. At this moment, he was particularly ominous, like a monster from the abyss. His whole body was full of evil. Under the gaze of Rinnegan, Pluto's body trembled uncontrollably. Farewell. Dustless glanced at Rayleigh, his left eye rippled, and several shadows floated around Dustless. After a few seconds of silence, Dustless's eyes suddenly widened several times. The shadows around him also condensed into his appearance, and immediately rushed toward Rayleigh. Tomb of Samsara, border prison. Rayleigh, who was unaware of what happened, was about to launch an attack. His abdomen, back, limbs, all the places that could be attacked were hit at the same time. How can this happen? Rayleigh looked at Dustless in disbelief, then fell to the ground unwillingly and fainted. Even with the defense of armament hockey, the invisible attack made him seriously injured, and if he didn't deliberately show mercy, he might have been beaten to a pulp on the spot. Rinnegan once again stirred up a ripple, and the shadow that stayed beside Rayleigh slowly disappeared. Chapter 845. Looking at Rayleigh, who fell to the ground, Dustless was unmoved and passed by him. Slow down. Rayleigh, who fainted, opened his eyes and showed his turbid eyes. In an instant he aged more than 10 years, and his vicissitudes of life gave people a feeling of weakness. Rayleigh was old, and now he was hit by the unexpected tomb of reincarnation. Border prison, and it was commendable to continue to have a fresh consciousness. It's over, don't look for your own death. Turning his head and glancing at Rayleigh, Dustless's back gradually dissipated, evolving from a subtle ink dot to disappearing. Boom! A burst of messy footsteps came from a distance, and groups of people ran as if there was an earthquake. Without exception, all of them were Marine soldiers with guns. It's really over. Looking up at the fierce Marine soldiers, Rayleigh was uncharacteristically calm. Instead of being afraid, there was a feeling of clearing the clouds and seeing the blue sky. After hiding for many years, it was time for this kind of street rat to come to an end. The death of the celestial dragon St. Charles undoubtedly increased the turmoil in the Sabaean archipelago. Not only the pirates, but even ordinary civilians fled. Celestial dragon was killed. This is not over. The thought of the stimulated celestial dragon is unpredictable, and it is normal for him to slaughter the city in anger. At this moment, Kizaru lit a cigarette. Although his expression was as wretched as before, his hands trembled slightly. Even with the cover of reading glasses, the haze in Kizaru's eyes was still visible. Beside him, there was a row of pacifists and Sentomaru. What is even more confusing is that Kizaru also stepped on a pacifist under his feet, and the skin on the surface was cut open, revealing various internal machinery. Kuma, give this old man a reasonable explanation. Lowering his voice, no longer the lazy voice of the past, Kizaru was angry, and he could vaguely hear the meaning of anger. The Shichibukai under his feet was actually the prototype of these pacifists, Bartholomew Kuma. When Marlindo heard that Kizaru was going to land on Marihoya to destroy the supernova, Kuma volunteered to fight and indeed hit the supernova with overwhelming strength. However, the government treats you well, but you used your ability to send those pirates flying. As he said this, Kizaru's old face suddenly changed, and his whole body burst out with a cold chill. Even the cigarette in his hand was extinguished, and a terrible momentum exuded from Kizaru's body. Vaguely, he could hear the wailing and howling of ghosts. Killing the Tenryubito is Dustless's responsibility, and it has nothing to do with Kizaru, but the group of supernovas who ran away can't be separated from him. Although he won't be demoted, a punishment is inevitable. Who would have thought that a traitor like you would take advantage of the loophole in the end? Well, after we go back this time, I'll completely transform you into a humanoid machine. This will be the last time you'll be able to move. Kizaru said emotionlessly like steel. You seem to have a problem here, Borsellino. An indifferent voice came, and Dustless came into view. His eyes expanded rapidly. There were a lot of pirates caught, but most of them were small fries with tens of millions of berries, and the supernovas had evaporated. When Dustless said this, Kizaru's face flashed with embarrassment. The supernovas were sent flying by this guy's ability, and only this group of small fries is left. Kizaru said gloomily as he kicked Bartholomew Kuma. It was one thing for the cooked duck to fly away, but what made him speechless was that the instigator was one of his own people. The vicious hungry wolf can't be fed, and the chance of him working with peace of mind is zero. Dustless had expected this. When Kuma joined the world government to establish the Shichibukai, he was forced to do so. Now it's reasonable to help the supernovas. After all, the more chaotic the world is, the more advantageous it is for the Revolutionary Army. Yeah. It's strange. Is this old man's eyes dazzled? Kizaru deliberately wiped his glasses and put them back on. After confirming that he didn't recognize the wrong person, he was surprised and said, I heard that One Piece's right arm, Rayleigh, had appeared in the Sabaody archipelago. I didn't expect it to be true. Not only that, it seems that he has been caught. Kizaru's voice was filled with schadenfreude. Following his line of sight, he saw Rayleigh tied up. His face was filled with loneliness. Under the afterglow of the setting sun, the sun was setting in the west. I didn't expect to meet in such a way, Borsellino. Rayleigh's tone was filled with endless self-mockery. Who would have thought that he would be reduced to a prisoner in the past? Even in his dreams, Rayleigh had never seen him like this. This is what you get for standing up for those little devils. You have to pay the price for everything you do. The rest of your life will be spent in the dark of Impel Down. Dustless said calmly. Things have come to an end, and it's difficult for Rayleigh to turn over. The pirates on the island are almost wiped out. It's time to retreat. The corpses on the island leading to the Fishman Island were piled up like mountains. The pirates on the island were almost wiped out, and they were crushed by the exposed strength of pacifism. Chapter 846. One day later on the sea. The blue battleship sailed to the sea. Dustless and Borsellino stood side by side, looking at the distant sea. In a trance, they seemed to be able to see Marin in the depths of the clouds. In the dark, they can see the marine headquarters that was almost destroyed. Sengoku is going to go all out. The Shichibukai seems to be on standby in Marin. It seems that I have to fulfill the original treaty. Dustless said softly. Kizaru heard this and nodded. His rough hand full of dead skin held a newspaper. The content on it was enough to shake the whole world. The general content is that Fire Fist Ace will be publicly executed in the Marine headquarters in half a month. But this is also good, just to pass the boring time. Lying comfortably on the couch, Dustless's face was lazy. He had an agreement with the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Once the Marine headquarters was attacked, he had to take action. To be able to personally send Whitebeard to the Western Paradise, Wu Chen expressed that he couldn't wish for anything more. You Marines will regret it. Rayleigh, who was chained to the mast, said with a hint of worry in his voice. Once the Whitebeard pirates collapse, the New World, which was once sheltered by Whitebeard, will riot. At that time, the whole world will go berserk and fall into unprecedented chaos. Hearing this, the bored Dustless's mouth squirmed, and he was about to ridicule Rayleigh, but Kizaru attacked ahead of time. Mr. Rayleigh is really compassionate. As a pirate, you are worried about these problems. So what if all of this happens? Kizaru glanced absent-mindedly at Rayleigh, and then said frivolously, Is it because of this that you let Whitebeard go? What a joke. In the end, Kizaru's voice was full of contempt. Glancing at Hell King Rayleigh as if nothing had happened, Wu Chen's eyes were more or less full of pity. Whitebeard has been in the sea for a lifetime, and has accumulated countless crimes. Perhaps in the view of the Marine, killing Whitebeard hastily is already a respect for him. Bear. Suddenly standing up from the couch, Dustless walked in front of Tyrant Bear. His deep eyes can penetrate people's inner thoughts. You didn't send Straw Hat Luffy directly to Impel Down, did you? How far we can take him depends entirely on fate, Xiong Xian replied calmly, appearing unusually calm. This kind of nonsense can only fool children. Dustless was too lazy to argue. Immediately, an idea flashed through his mind, and he immediately teased, Straw Hat Luffy is a devil fruit user. What if you throw him into the sea? Then he deserves to drown. He can only blame his short life, Tyrant Bear said indifferently. You're already so old. Yet you're still so shallow when it comes to lying. Although the Tyrant Bear looked big and sometimes looked silly, It was actually very meticulous and collected information without batting an eyelid. He would never be so rash. Why don't you let me guess? There was a strange smile on the corner of his mouth. He stared at the tyrant bear's eyes with glasses, clear and bright, and instantly saw through his mind. If I didn't guess wrong, it should be Red Hairshanks, right? The news that the Marine headquarters was about to execute Fire Fist swept the world in less than a day. The calm sea was like a meteorite attack, rolling up monstrous waves, and the whole world fell into a frenzy of public opinion. Whether the Marine headquarters collapsed or the Whitebeard pirates entered the end, these two controversial topics have never stopped, and have become the after-dinner gossip of people all over the world. Somewhere on an island in the New World. Beckman, I told you not to let him find out when you talk about Ace. In the end, sigh. Red-haired Shanks let out a long sigh and rolled his eyes at the innocent Beckman. Now it's impossible to stop Luffy from saving Ace. Although the time he spent with Luffy before was very short, Red-haired Shanks did understand Luffy's temperament, stubborn and one-track minded. Indeed, as Dustless imagined, Luffy did accidentally fall from the sky and landed on the island where the Red Hair Pirates were temporarily stationed in the New World. I'm going to save Ace. Where is he locked up? Don't stop me, Shanks. Luffy showed the determination to go forward. Sure enough, Red Hair Shanks was helpless. Looking at Luffy, he said with powerlessness. Although I know it's useless to persuade you, I still want to say give up, Luffy. That Whitebeard man didn't succeed in breaking the prison before. Although Red Hair Shanks is very optimistic about Luffy, he still can't reach the top. That's not necessarily the case, Shanks. Beckman, the think tank of Red Hair Pirates, said. The Marine headquarters concentrates most of the manpower from all over the world, and other places are certainly not well prepared. Red Hair Shanks nodded. Hesitation appeared on his face, and immediately stared at Luffy's eager eyes. He could only shrug his shoulders and promise to help Luffy once. Fire Fist Ace was Roger's son in the past, and Roger's fight with Red Hair was like a rebirth. Without the experience of Roger's pirates, perhaps Red Hair Shanks is just an ordinary member of the masses. Chapter 847. Luffy, you must be careful when you meet that dangerous man in the future. He is more terrifying than you think. Don't be careless. Just be on guard against his godlike enemy. Luffy's face was full of doubt when he heard that. He always felt that his description of Dustless was too terrifying, as if he was a natural enemy. Luffy, don't be surprised. Some things are far more complicated than you think. Seeing Luffy's suspicious face, Beckman, the second in command of the Akagami Red Hair Pirates, explained that although the size of the Akagami Red Hair Pirates was very small, there were more than a dozen people now. All of this is thanks to Dustless. In the Marine Headquarters Fleet Admiral office, Sengoku's eyes were bloodshot. Since he ordered the public execution of Fire Fist, the world has been in chaos. There are even some places singing the collapse theory of the Marine, and the seas all over the world are in a mess. Is there any news from the Marine Fleet monitoring Whitebeard? Sengoku looked up and asked. Akiji and Akainu were sitting on the sofa, and Garp was at a loss. Fire Fist Ace was about to be executed, and he was very sad. Rumble. The den mushi on the table rang without warning. Sengoku was full of energy and was about to ask about the Whitebeard pirates, but the opposite side first sent a message that made his face turn green. Fleet Admiral, we are responsible for monitoring the Whitebeard pirates' fleet. They were all wiped out. A scream of horror came from the other side of the den mushi. Without waiting for Sengoku to ask, the den mushi stopped moving. This is just revenge. Soon, a more violent storm will blow to us. Dustless and Kizaru walked into the Fleet Admiral's office, and the person who spoke was Dustless. I heard that you caught Rayleigh? Sengoku's eyes flashed with bright light, and he immediately asked. Hearing this, Dustless nodded. This kind of thing is not worth hiding, and there is no need to. He has been sent to impel down by me. This time, we must catch them all. Sengoku's eyebrows danced, and there was a touch of pride and hostility in his words, which fell into the ears of others, but there was an unusual meaning. Akiji, Kizaru, and Akainu frowned and lowered their heads in silence. Don't tell me you want to execute Rayleigh as well? Wu Chen's sharp eyes are shining, throbbing with a threatening chill. He can see through Sengoku's mind at a glance and affirms. In order to strengthen the power of the Marine, this kind of trivial matter is not impossible. It was just one more person to be executed, and 2 more executioners to be found. I think so. Akainu's eyes glowed with fanaticism. He was 100% willing to agree with Sengoku's approach. Together with Fire Fist Ace and Rayleigh, and by the way, destroy Whitebeard, just to solve all the people related to Roger. The symbolic meaning was self-evident. What do you think? Sengoku nodded with satisfaction. And finally his eyes fell on Dustless and asked curiously. Up to you. Anyway, the Whitebeard pirates must collapse this time. This is for justice, to maintain world peace. The righteous Marine will never lose to the evil pirates, and justice will win. Dustless, with a straight face, said impassioned, and there was great righteousness in his words. Sengoku, Akainu, and other admirals were stunned. Garp's face was weird, and the corners of his mouth squirmed. Thinking of Dustless's identity, he shut up. This guy is a Tenryubito, the most evil person in the world. And he shamelessly said that it was for justice. About half an hour later, the small meeting was over. The main issue that came back and forth was the Whitebeard pirates. In the softly lit office, Dustless sat leisurely, and the person who massaged his shoulders was Perona, while the secretary, Khalifa, stood with a cold expression. Her body was like a javelin, quite professional. Execution together. This is interesting. The vice captain of One Piece and his own son were executed together. This gorgeous drama can attract the attention of the world, and at the same time, it can increase the prestige of Marine, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Guru Guru. The impatient sound of Den Den Mushi came, and Dustless looked at the dark Den Den Mushi on the table doubtfully. The person who contacted him was the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Those 5 old men never look for me for a good thing. Looking up at the delicate ceiling, Dustless said to himself with certainty. That's why you are lawless. Glancing at Dustless, Khalifa said mercilessly. The Den Den Mushi in front of him looked gloomy, as if Dustless owed him a lot of money. Thinking about it, when the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, looked for Dustless, it was never good. Perona remained silent. Usually she was the most talkative, but now it was rare for her to be low-key. In fact, Perona couldn't say anything. It's not that she didn't want to talk, but she suddenly realized that she and Dustless were not in the same world, and simple language was difficult to communicate with. As a Marine Admiral, Dustless was in contact with Marine Fleet Admiral, and even Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. She couldn't think at all. Chapter 848. Perona cautiously approached Khalifa and said in a voice as soft as a mosquito. Do we need to leave? The other party is Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. The more you know, the faster you die. This is an immutable truth. Leave. Khalifa shook her head resolutely and pointed at Dustless. Do you think he wants us to leave? She looked up and saw Wu Chen's sloppy expression. Both of his legs were placed on the table casually. He looked like a rich second generation. The person who contacted Dustless with Den Den Mushi was more like a hooligan to some extent. Only when dealing with hooligans would Dustless be so frivolous. Seeing this scene, Perona also knew that she was overthinking. Dustless didn't care, so they didn't need to care. She stood beside Dustless and massaged his back. Looking at the deep black Den Den Mushi with a headache expression, Dustless frowned secretly and vaguely understood the purpose of the call. Isn't it just killing that pighead Charles? Is there a need to make such a fuss? Calmly picking up the Den Den Mushi, Dustless whispered, as if nothing had happened. Louis South Saint, please give us a reasonable explanation. On the other side of the Den Den Mushi, the angry voice of Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, came over, and even the black Den Den Mushi was replaced by an angry expression. The celestial dragons were killed inhumanely, and the culprit just patted their buttocks and then swaggered away. The Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, were furious. You celestial dragons are also of the same race, at least respect each other. Explanation? What kind of explanation do you need? Looking at the Den Den Mushi with a casual expression, Dustless's answer was also perfunctory. I, a celestial dragon, need to explain to you? Are you all mistaken? This ordinary sentence made the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, look stiff and speechless. The status of celestial dragons is higher than the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, and they are so straightforward that they are suspected of offending their superiors. However, although the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, is not as high as the celestial dragons, this is also an undeniable fact, but it is too direct and too hurtful. Even so, there is no need to kill Charles. The Gorosei, 5 elder stars. On the other side of the Den Den Mushi, a good celestial dragon was killed, without a reasonable explanation. It is difficult to suppress this matter. There are countless eyes in the whole world are watching this matter. There must be an explanation. Although the 5 elder stars, unfortunately, the law of this world does not allow them to do so. Do you still want to pursue it? Or are you going to arrest me as a celestial dragon and execute me? 5 elder stars to 5 elder 5, 2, SSS with 5 fives. Hearing this, the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, of Mariehua, countless crows crossed their heads. Punish the celestial dragons. Even if they have this idea, they dare not do it. Of course not. The Gorosei, 5 elder stars, quickly denied it. After Dustless's, they no longer have the heart to blame. Instead of tangling with this, it is better to discuss how to settle the matter at hand. The celestial dragons have been killed, and the whole world is in a mess, waiting for them to explain. The celestial dragon Charles is dead. This is an indisputable fact. It is useless to blame Dustless. Even if he is the culprit, there is no law in the world to punish the celestial dragons. But we have to give the world an explanation. We can't announce the identity of Lewis South. On the other side of the black Den Den Mushi, it is obviously changed to someone else, and the voice is more powerful than the previous Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Dustless is actually quite familiar with the owner of this voice, and the bald Gorosei, 5 elder stars, with a sword suddenly appeared in his mind. It was Dustless who robbed his first-generation ghost blade with a plan. Give others an explanation? That's your business. I have other things to do, so I won't accompany you. When his voice fell, Dustless hung up the black Den Den Mushi, too lazy to talk nonsense with the 5 old guys. A group of old foxes who only know how to play tricks is useless. Charles Ross had been completely dead. Although he was a celestial dragon, he was not worth mentioning in the end. About a dozen years ago, Dustless also killed a celestial dragon, but at that time, he was still carefree. There is also a level gap between the celestial dragons. You really know how to cause trouble. Perona, who was responsible for massaging the shoulders behind him, couldn't help but be speechless. Her beautiful eyes kept rolling as if she had already seen the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, vomiting blood. How difficult and uncomfortable it is to live with such a lawless master. In fact, as Perona thought, the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, of Mariehua are indeed very entangled. Dustless can't be beaten or caught, and there is nothing they can do even if they know that he is a prisoner. If they want to punish Dustless, they are still too far away. After careful consideration, the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, can only repeat the same trick, and very decisively choose to throw the blame on others, such as the supernovas who attacked the celestial dragons in the Sabaody archipelago that day. They are all good scapegoats, which is the only strategy the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, can think of to protect Dustless. So what if I cause trouble? Anyway, someone will always take the blame for me. I don't know which unlucky guy is targeted by the Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Looking down at the marine headquarters that was being repaired, Dustless muttered to himself. Chapter 849. A few more days slipped away quietly, and as Dustless imagined, the unlucky guy came out. At this moment, Fleet Admiral Sengoku's office was filled with a strong smell of gunpowder. Looking around, the whole office was oppressive and almost suffocating. Although there were only a few people, everyone looked cautious. Boom! A tall body walked in front of Sengoku, and a strong palm slammed on the table, causing visible cracks to appear. and the surrounding documents were blown all over the floor. Sengoku's goat that was raised to eat intelligence suddenly had a good meal. There was no doubt that in the Marine Headquarters Fleet Admiral's office, besides Sengoku himself, there was only one person who dared to slap the table. This is not fair. Holding the latest newspaper in his hand angrily, Garp yelled. Luffy didn't kill a celestial dragon. Why did they put such a big hat on his head? This time, Dustless took the blame for Manchi D. Luffy. There's nothing we can do about it. With a sigh, Sengoku found that he was quite sorry for his old comrade. Not only could he not help him, but he also framed Sun Zibo. This is what Mariehua and the others want. Sengoku made the final decision and pushed all the responsibility to the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. This was all done by them, and the Marine didn't even have the qualification to intervene. Aren't there other pirates? Let them take the blame. Garp said unwillingly. Once the crime of killing a celestial dragon is confirmed, Luffy won't have a chance to clear his name in the future, and he will become the public enemy of the world. Isn't there someone called Uchiha Madara? Give him the responsibility. Puff. Dustless, who was drinking tea, felt his lungs churn. The tea that entered his stomach spurted out uncontrollably. What do you think is inappropriate? Dissatisfied eyes swept over, and when he looked up he saw Garp's face was black, and his words were full of unkindness. He couldn't help but feel aggrieved for Luffy. The incident in Eni's lobby was already bad enough, but this time, the killing of a celestial dragon fell on Luffy's head. Just thinking about it made Garp angry. In fact, I think it's quite appropriate to let Madara take the blame. Dustless smiled and said somewhat insincerely, if he put the blame for this incident on Madara, then it wouldn't be called a scapegoat. Sengoku's expression stiffened, and he immediately took out a document with a wry smile and handed it to Garp, saying, in fact, the scapegoat character I found was Uchiha Madara. Unfortunately, when I handed it to the Gorosei, they rejected it in one breath. His tone was extremely bleak, and it carried a trace of melancholy and loneliness. There is no doubt that Uchiha Madara is more suitable than anyone else to be the scapegoat. He is powerful and lawless. He dares to openly confront an admiral of the Marine, so Luffy is far more suitable to be the scapegoat. Cowardly, not like a righteous Marine at all. After pondering for a moment, Garp tore the document to shreds in anger and humiliation. His tone was filled with boundless killing intent. Sengoku looked at the scene in front of him in silence, and a sense of powerlessness arose in his heart. Why push the blame to Luffy? It's entirely because he's too weak. Even if he's unwilling and intends to resist, Luffy can't do anything substantial. Therefore, this inexplicable blame all fell on Luffy's head. He can only blame himself for not having the right to speak, and can only go with the flow. This service is really considerate. Looking at the document torn by the furious Garp, Dustless understood the meaning of the Gorosei. Compared to the mysterious Uchiha Madara, Luffy is indeed more suitable to be the scapegoat. One is a powerful and lawless monster, and the other is a weak ant. It's reasonable for the government and the Marine to finally choose to push the blame to Luffy. According to Dustless's guess, the Gorosei are afraid that the Marine will suffer fierce retaliation if they push the blame to Uchiha Madara. At this time, the Marine is about to go to war with the Whitebeard pirates. If they offend Uchiha Madara and get attacked by him, there will definitely be a disaster. After all, Uchiha Madara defeated 2 admirals, Kizaru and Akiji. In the end, Luffy was abandoned by the Marine and the government, and became Dustless's scapegoat. Don't be sad, Garp. Sengoku softly comforted. Garp can't afford to lose. Whether in terms of strength or stability, Garp will play a decisive role in this battle. Don't forget, that kid hit a celestial dragon. Although Celestial Dragon was killed by Dustless, Straw Hat Luffy did hit Celestial Dragon. Even if Dustless didn't kill Charles, he would still be killed by Luffy. The reason is that Luffy's friend was shot by Charles, which aroused Luffy's anger. It's only a matter of time before he kills the Celestial Dragon. After a long silence, Garp finally nodded absent-mindedly and sat back on the sofa. This is the case in this world, the law of the jungle. The strong are respected, not to mention the fact that Luffy hit a Celestial Dragon. Chapter 850. After a long silence, Garp finally nodded absent-mindedly and sat back on the sofa again. The world is like this, paying attention to the law of the jungle, and the strong are respected, not to mention the fact that Luffy killed a Tenryubito. Even if Dustless didn't kill Charles, according to Luffy's temperament, he would definitely kill Charles even if he was enraged. Now it was merely Dustless who killed someone, and the scapegoat was replaced by Luffy. Rumble rumble. A rush of Den Mushi broke the dull atmosphere. Sengoku was stunned and immediately picked up the Den Mushi. Fleet Admiral. The New World was once related to the Whitebeard pirates, and all of them have disappeared without a trace. Hearing this, Sengoku's mouth twitched, and his face showed a touch of fatigue. During this period his hair was a lot white, and his whole body was bent, and he was obviously a lot older. Recently, the Whitebeard pirates have made big moves one after another, and Sengoku's head was broken. He wanted to stop it, but he couldn't. Because at this moment, 9 out of 10 of the world's forces are concentrated in the Marine headquarters. And the New World is completely empty. He wants to stop it, but he doesn't have that ability at all. Monitor them immediately, and report to me every move, Sengoku calmly ordered, although it was just a pretense. No matter when, as a Marine Fleet Admiral, he must remain calm enough. Even if Mount Tai collapses in front of him, he must not be seen through by the enemy. Come to think of it, where's the man with black beard? Wu Chen suddenly asked with a light in his eyes. Akiji and others frowned when they heard this, and they began to think about Blackbeard's whereabouts, but they were surprised to find that the old guy seemed to disappear out of thin air. Bastard, at such an urgent moment, where did that ambitious man go? Sengoku, who instinctively realized that something was wrong, roared. At such a tense moment, Blackbeard disappeared inexplicably, and Sengoku couldn't calm down. A character comparable to an admiral disappeared, and it was difficult for Sengoku to calm down. What about his accomplices? Thinking of several crew members of Blackbeard Titch, Sengoku raised his voice. If these people are still in Marin, it means that Blackbeard has no signs of rebellion. If they disappear collectively like Blackbeard, it means self-evident what it means. I'm afraid he's long gone. Dustless suddenly opened his mouth and said, "When I came here just now, I saw a warship suddenly leave." Sengoku's face changed dramatically. A few days ago he ordered that except for the family members on the island, everyone should leave Marin strictly. It was self-evident who escaped by boat. Do you want to send someone to chase after him? Leaving Blackbeard alone will definitely cause a big problem. Akainu frowned and asked hoarsely, revealing a strong murderous aura. There's no need. Let him be. Dustless interrupted. People like Blackbeard are sincere in causing destruction. It's useless for us to stop them. It's better to let nature take its course. Don't forget that the current enemy is Whitebeard. Sengoku gently nodded. Even if he wanted to chase Blackbeard, he was powerless because the Marine didn't know Blackbeard's movements at all. Akainu, Kizaru, and Akiji stay in the Marine headquarters. Royce South is responsible for going to Impel Down to extract the Fire Fist. When he comes, he will be executed immediately, Sengoku said to Dustless. Of course, there is also the One Piece King's right arm, Rayleigh. This time, he will be executed together with him, Sengoku said. Dustless nodded slowly. The significance of executing Rayleigh is far greater than imprisoning him. It can play the role of knocking the mountain to scare the tiger. But I don't know if it will go as smoothly as you think. Glancing at Sengoku, Dustless left the Fleet Admiral's office directly. Everything can't go as smoothly as Sengoku thought. Rayleigh is not an idiot, and Dustless will not obediently accept the punishment. All in all, this is an unprecedented fierce battle. Of course, the target of the fierce battle is only limited to the Marine. Dustless is detached from the world, and will not be affected. On the Blue Sea, the large giant warship moved forward quickly, cutting through the thorns and brambles, riding the wind and waves, and their destination is Impel Down. Blackbeard may be in Impel Down. Looking at the void in front of him, he saw Blackbeard's arrogant and unscrupulous figure. Blackbeard took the risk to go deep into Impel Down alone. Nothing more than to find the so-called companions. It is undeniable that the prisoners at the bottom of Impel Down are indeed unimaginably strong, and it is normal for Blackbeard to find them as companions. At this time, in another direction, a big red ship is also sailing at full speed, and its destination is also Impel Down, but its flag is obviously different from the Marine flag. It is a unique pirate flag. Looking closely, it is the Akagami Red Hair Pirates. Under Luffy's strong desire, Akagami Red Hair can only help this kid with all his strength. Although the hope is slim and even negligible, he chooses to follow his conscience and instincts. Fortunately, all the Akagami Red Hair pirates support him. At the same time, the Marine battleship seized by Blackbeard also rushed to Impel Down, and because of the early arrival, all of them have landed in Impel Down, a place full of evil. The same is true for Shanks and Dustless. As time goes by, they are close to Impel Down. Chapter 851. On the distant sea, a huge battleship was galloping. It was full of Marines. Everyone's expression was almost the same. They all showed great panic, and their legs were soft. Hey 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 hey, his signature cold smile was unbridled, completely unbridled and arrogant. A man with an open belly and a chest full of hair suddenly stood out. He looked ferocious and ugly like a pig. He had a grin on his face, and from time to time there was a burst of disgusting breath. He gave people the feeling that he was a beast in human clothes. Staring at the group of Marines, his eyes flashed with cunning and cruel eyes. "Captain Titch, you are too naughty," Lafitte, one of Blackbeard's crew, teased. Blackbeard looked ferocious and intimidated the group of Marines. Seeing their silent appearance, Blackbeard grinned. "You didn't forget what I just told you otherwise." A cruel killing intent flashed in the corner of Blackbeard's eyes. He raised his right hand, which instantly turned dark black. A majestic and dense gravitational force shot out from his palm. The air flowing in the void was swallowed by this dark hand. The other side of him was like the abyss of the universe. "Ah, let me go!" A captured Marine screamed. His internal organs were being sucked by the dark hand. His body gradually shriveled and turned from a living person into a yellow skeleton. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. Captain's devil fruit ability has greatly increased. In the future, he will replace Whitebeard and become the Pirate King. Even surpassing the Pirate King is just around the corner. Seeing that Blackbeard raised his hand to destroy the Marines, Bagaz, who was in charge of the helm, began to flatter Blackbeard. His flattering expression was more respectful than seeing his father. A while ago, Blackbeard's control of the dark fruit was far from reaching such a level of proficiency. Now that he was using it so skillfully, it was obvious that Blackbeard had strengthened his training during this period of time, which was why he could improve so quickly. At the same time, more and more abilities condensed in his body. During this period of time, he had devoured more than 100 devil fruit ability users, and he had taken their ability from them. With pressure comes motivation. This is all thanks to those two men, Blackbeard said with a smile of exultation. Although he knew that this was flattery, it was very effective on him. He had always been the one sucking up to others. Now that he was suddenly being sucked up to, Blackbeard felt exceptionally happy. His 10 fingers were adorned with rings made of gold, and inlaid with all kinds of gorgeous gems. They shone especially brightly under the sunlight. Not only that, Blackbeard's face was rustic and uncouth, as if he was a villain who had achieved success. "Hurry up and ram the ship into Impel Down, or else you will end up like him." Blackbeard threatened the remaining Marine soldiers. His whole body was covered in darkness, like a grim reaper in black. His strange, dark hands were far more exciting than a sharp sickle. These ordinary Marines almost had a mental breakdown. Under the threat of death, they chose to help Blackbeard. They directly controlled the battleship to break through the defense of Impel Down, and directly hit the inland. Boom boom boom. The huge battleship was like a meteorite falling from the sky. The ground of Impel Down splashed a lot of dust. In the hazy dust, several figures of different shapes jumped off the ship. "Hey hey hey hey." Looking at the entrance of Impel Down in front of him, Blackbeard's face flashed a cold arc and immediately stepped in with his head held high. Bang bang bang. The jailers and Marines who came from all around were hit hard by the overwhelming strength. Hundreds of Marines who came to support were killed by the Blackbeard pirates in the blink of an eye. Am I too late? After an hour, Dustless came. Impel Down was like a purgatory on earth. Corpses were everywhere. This miserable scene made Dustless frown. There shouldn't be. Dustless's secretary Khalifa looked around. The harbor was full and almost all the battleships were there. Obviously, Blackbeard had not left Impel Down. In a trance, they could still hear the cruel screams of fear. Hey, 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 hey. In the dark prison, there was a burst of arrogant laughter, followed by an arrogant voice that fell into everyone's ears. Looking up, the iron prison in the deepest part of Impel Down had been opened by Blackbeard with brute force. Countless ferocious criminals were rushing to escape from the cage. I'll give you half an hour to fight. The one who survives in the end will be my companion. We will become the Pirate King together and conquer. Conquer? Conquer what? Don't dream about it, Titch. An extremely uncoordinated voice interrupted Blackbeard. He looked up and saw Fire Fist Ace glaring at him. His entire body was shrouded in an extremely oppressive aura of flames. Fire Fist Ace and Blackbeard have a blood feud. Ace, with your current identity as a stray dog, you still want to challenge me? Blackbeard said disdainfully with a sneer on the corner of his mouth. I haven't seen you for a while. Your arrogance is no less than before, Blackbeard. A dazzling flash of light suddenly appeared. A large number of photons came from all directions and condensed into Dustless's figure. He can't, but there's me. Chapter 852. There are only two people that Blackbeard hates the most in his life. One is Whitebeard, who almost killed him. It can be said that the hatred between them is as deep as the sea. He can't wait to tear Whitebeard into pieces. The other is the young man in front of him, the youngest admiral of the Marine. Why are you here? You should be in the Marine headquarters fighting against the Whitebeard pirates. In the end, Blackbeard almost roared out. The fear and threat that Dustless gave him was no less than that of Whitebeard. It wasn't only Blackbeard who looked gloomy. Most of the pirates who witnessed Dustless recognized the legendary admiral. During this period, many pirates were caught by Dustless and sent to Impel Down. For Dustless, they are unforgettable. Of course, it's all unforgettable hatred. Everyone, let's kill this Marine admiral together. Otherwise, we won't be able to go out. We will all be killed by him in this ghost place. We will be cruelly suppressed again and be slaughtered. Lafitte's mouth swept with a sly smile as he shouted. His powerful and advantageous tone was bewitching, swallowing and wearing away their inner reason. Apparently, he intended to use the power of this group of pirates to destroy Dustless together. These people had already gone crazy from being locked up. They couldn't wait to get out. Anyone who went against them would receive a fatal beating from them. Kill him. The eyes of all the pirates turned scarlet, and they were filled with terrible hostility. A group of fools. Have you been blinded by the fanatical mentality of freedom? Fool, challenging me is not a step to freedom, but a step into the door of the underworld. His whole body swept with a more bright high-density light, and his hands condensed a golden sword. The invincible edge made people not dare to look directly at it. The burning light seemed to be blinding. When he was about to personally destroy this group of rioting pirates, two unexpected figures came out like arrows. Bang, bang, bang. The oncoming pirates were instantly kicked away by the combined forces of the two. It was extremely simple and easy. Hancock and Khalifa? That's surprising. A soft smile appeared on his indifferent face. Dustless understood that Hancock helped him, but he didn't understand why Khalifa suddenly interfered. After all, he killed all the CP9 members except Khalifa, and it stands to reason that he should hate him. You're wrong. I just don't want these people to kill you. Khalifa pushed up her glasses. Her beautiful, gem-like eyes were as dazzling as the stars. You are my prey. I don't want you to die in the hands of these people. Not bad. An even more unexpected petite figure came into view. Looking up, it was Perona. Seeing this scene, Dustless couldn't help but feel dumbfounded. He didn't expect his head to be so valuable. Not only did the enemy want it, but his own people were no exception. Hey, you bastard, you're quite popular with women. Blackbeard stared at Hancock and the other two beauties with a gloomy face. He had lived for a long time, and he could naturally see the meaning of the three women. His sour tone was somewhat jealous. In most of his life, no woman had ever looked at Blackbeard. That's for sure. Hearing this, Dustless turned his head and looked at Blackbeard contemptuously. He showed a mocking smile and said sarcastically, "Compared with a fat pig like you, I'm very popular with women." Boom boom boom. At the same time, Hancock, Khalifa, and Perona launched a fierce attack. Especially Hancock, under her weak body hid a destructive power. Compared to an admiral, she was even more powerful. Although Khalifa and Perona were not as good as Hancock, they were not careless when they attacked. Every time they used their ability, they would take away a large number of people. "You two, where do you want to go?" In the dark corridor, Dustless's figure suddenly disappeared and turned into thousands of photons, flashing bright light, and the entire dark bottom of Impel Down was as bright as day. Dustless pointed at the two people who were planning to sneak away. It was Rayleigh and Fire Fist Ace. "I have made a military order to the warring states. How can I bear the two of you running away so carelessly?" Photons floated, and Dustless blocked Fire Fist Ace and Rayleigh in an instant. His cold face was full of indifference, and he held the Kusanagi sword in his hand to block their way. "You two are the main characters in the script of this war. I can't let you just walk away like that." Fire Fist Ace and Rayleigh heard this and looked at each other. They could see the determination in each other's eyes. They looked at Dustless and were full of fighting spirit. Obviously, they would not wait for death. "Ace and Mr. Rayleigh, you two leave first. His target is you two. I will hold him back for a while." When his voice fell, a lightning-like hurricane swept toward them. Because of the speed, even his appearance could not be seen clearly. "Hero of the Sea Jinbe, you want to hold me back with your half-baked skills? I really don't know where your confidence comes from. You are really ignorant. You can't touch my body in your life." Chapter 853. Hero of the Sea Jinbe, you want to hold me back with your half-baked skills? I really don't know where your confidence comes from. It's really ignorant. You can't touch my body in your life. Some people always think that simple passion and indomitable will narrow the gap in strength between them. In fact, this is a dream. In the face of absolute strength, any struggle is futile. It doesn't work at all. Phew. He lifted his toes and condensed a large number of photons. His small feet instantly turned into a flash of light, revealing a strong destructive oppression that can easily collapse a large building. Lightspeed kick. A sharp roar fell, and the straight light was unstoppable and entangled with the hurricane in an instant. Boom boom boom. The fireball rose into the air, repelling the destructive shockwave. The surrounding buildings scattered like flowers, and a charred black figure was unavoidably sent flying. "Jinbe." The sharp-eyed Fire Fist Ace just glanced at him and recognized that it was Jinbe who was killed in seconds. "Useless waste. With your strength, you dare to come out and make a fool of yourself. You really lost face for us, Shichibukai. In the future, there will be no place for you in the sea." Blackbeard's rough face was filled with disdain, and he said contemptuously, "This kind of guy who can be defeated in one move dares to boast about holding him back." Pointing to Dustless, Blackbeard's face was filled with sarcasm. "You bastard." Hearing that, Fire Fist Ace glared at Blackbeard, his eyes spewing fire. "I'm telling the truth," Blackbeard said without fear. "Now he is not what he used to be, and he doesn't need to bow." "Blackbeard, I forgot to tell you." Dustless stared at Blackbeard and said mercilessly, "Jinbe was expelled from Shichibukai, and you are no exception. Before I came, Sengoku said that once you do something beyond the bottom line of Marine's tolerance, your Shichibukai title will be deprived. Now everything you have done has seriously violated the original regulations, so the identity of 7 warlords of the sea has also been deprived. Now you are the same as Jinbe. At best, you are a pirate stronger than him. There is no other special place." Blackbeard's expression suddenly stagnated. He immediately waved his hand, his face full of indifference, and laughed wildly. "Ha ha ha. Shichibukai, that boring title, I don't care about it at all. It's just a temporary shelter from the wind and rain." Temporary shelter from the wind and rain? As if he heard the funniest joke in the world, Dustless laughed out loud. In other words, do you think you are safe now? What a foolish and ignorant way of thinking. The moment his voice fell, Dustless flashed out. Dark water. Seeing the countless rays of light whizzing toward him, Blackbeard calmly raised his palm, and a majestic gravitational force sucked a large number of photons toward him. No wonder you are so confident. It turns out that the ability of the dark fruit is very fast. But in the end it can't be used. The photons gathered and condensed into the entity of Dustless. The majestic gravity enveloped Dustless. Instead of resisting, he rushed towards Blackbeard faster. Armament hockey hardening. As he approached Blackbeard, his fist turned dark black in an instant, and went straight towards Blackbeard's face. Haha. I am not afraid of you. Blackbeard's laughter was full of arrogance. Unlike the past, in the face of Dustless's attack he chose to face it head-on, and his right arm with the dark fruit also smashed without fear. Bang bang bang. In the center of the battle between the two, the destructive waves spread and erupted. Under this violent force, the surrounding terrain was rewritten on a large scale, and all of it was razed to the ground. This incredible scene awakened Fire Fist Ace. He didn't expect that Blackbeard, who was not worth mentioning in the past, could now openly confront a Marine Admiral. Haha. This is my strength. It's not any weaker than yours. Sensing the ease of passing through the fist, Blackbeard laughed out loud with a smile of exultation. Not only did he catch Dustless's attack, but he even had the upper hand. However, before he could be proud for long, Dustless sent him to hell with a sentence. Stupid man. A powerful momentum suddenly broke out in his body, and the small hand covered with armament hockey shined brighter. Not only that, but the strength in his hand also rose rapidly. It was a rise of several times. Caw caw caw. With the sound of bones breaking, Blackbeard's expression changed greatly, and his face turned blue and white. His arm that collided with Dustless could not withstand the sudden force and was fractured. And because of the particularity of the dark fruit, the pain he suffered was twice as much as usual. Roar roar roar. Ah! A pitiful scream that was neither human nor ghost resounded through the dark skies. Soon after, Blackbeard couldn't withstand it any longer, and was easily sent flying away. He crashed through several walls and his entire body was covered in blood and flesh. One could see that his arms were bent in a state of near bending. Just like Jinbe, he was killed on the spot with just a thought. He didn't even have the strength to fight back. They weren't in the same dimension at all. Chapter 854. Blackbeard stood up with difficulty, and the pain all over his body made him grimace. His face was ugly and unflattering, and with blood stains all over his body, he looked like a devil coming out of hell. Don't look at me like I'm dreaming. It will only make you look more fragile and idiotic. The gap between you and me is actually so big. Blackbeard's blank and empty eyes obviously thought that this was an illusory dream. Poochie. It was as if this cruel reality was no less of a blow to Blackbeard than a bolt of lightning. His wound, which had already burst open, suddenly had a smear of scarlet blood stain. And the wound also extended without limit. The heart-wrenching pain made Blackbeard wish he was dead. Let's besiege him together. Blackbeard's crew member, Bagasso, called out to Lafitte and another sniper, Van Oka, and the three immediately besieged him. Your captain can't do it. You guys can't do it. The corners of his body swept up out of thin air, and ripples visible to the naked eye splashed in the air. The invisible repulsion expanded and extended rapidly, and the three people who were affected were suddenly bounced out. Shinra Tensei. Boom, boom, boom. 3 consecutive loud noises fell, and the thick wall was suddenly smashed by the 3 people, forming 3 huge holes. The devastated Impel Down finally crumbled and showed signs of collapse. Looking up, a ray of warm light fell from the sky, and unknowingly, Impel Down had been pierced. Haven't you given up yet? Dustless looked back leisurely. Fire Fist Ace and Rayleigh disappeared from the world, and immediately saw hockey spread out like water ripples, and any movement in Impel Down, even the slightest change, could not escape Dustless's perception. Worthy of being a pirate of the Whitebeard Pirates, No one can match them in all aspects, and their ability to escape is also the same. In just a few seconds, Dustless found the traces of Fire Fist Ace and Underworld King Rayleigh. They were amazing opponents. They were like scud legs. In the short gap when Dustless defeated Blackbeard, they almost escaped from Impel Down. Want to go? Stop right there. Using all the strength in his body, Blackbeard's swaying body actually stood up as if he had come back from the dead. He had been brutally beaten up by Dustless in front of so many people. If he didn't get back some face, he really wouldn't be able to survive in the future. Perhaps even his underlings would look down on him. It didn't matter if he couldn't win, but if he didn't even dare to make a sound, then he would really be a coward. You want to leave so casually? Do you have any respect for me at all? Blackbeard pointed at the sky, and a dense dark sphere instantly formed. It was filled with a strong and irresistible gravitational force. Glancing at Blackbeard, Dustless's next sentence caused Blackbeard to vomit blood. Even the large hand that was concentrating on condensing the black sphere trembled. This highly dense sphere was almost destroyed. If I really cared about you, I wouldn't have left like this. You're right, I really don't care about you, Dustless admitted frankly with your very smart look on his face. You forced me to do this, Dark Acupoint. Blackbeard, who was angry out of humiliation, roared sharply and used his strongest move at the moment. The darkness hidden in his body desperately leaked out. It was like a flood that broke through the dam. There was no end, and it was eternal and infinite. The sphere condensed by the void continued to expand, and it was getting bigger and bigger. The highly dense gravitational sphere wanted to crush the world, forcibly distorting the void, and constantly absorbing the darkness from Blackbeard's body to increase its size. This move, this is one of my current moves. Are you scared, silly? Ha ha ha. Without waiting for Dustless to finish speaking, Blackbeard rudely interrupted, followed by a proud signature smile. His ruthless appearance was filled with unprecedented hatred. For Dustless, he couldn't wait to tear him into pieces. This move is indeed not bad. But, with a contemptuous smile, Dustless said bluntly, you want to destroy me with this lousy sphere? Blackbeard, your strength has improved, but your brain is still at the same level. With a bright brilliance rising from his body, Dustless indifferently looked down at the floating black sphere. The chakra hidden in his body skyrocketed, forming an unprecedentedly large Concisanu arm. An unprecedentedly large arm that was actually dozens of meters tall. Blackbeard was dumbfounded and tongue-tied at the sight. What is he doing? Looking at the large golden arm in the void, Blackbeard choked. Looking at his line of sight, one could clearly see that part of Consisanu's arm was grabbing the black sphere formed by Dark Acupoint. This bastard, is he trying to crush him? Blackbeard couldn't help but go crazy. He was so angry that he cursed. His strongest move was actually treated like this by the enemy. His old face was flushed red. This was a slap in the face. From the looks of it, it was obvious that he wanted to crush him with his bare hands. Blackbeard, open your eyes and see clearly. This is the gap. No matter how hard you work, how hard you fight, how many devil fruits you devour, you can't overcome this gap. Sneering, Dustless controlled the part of Consisanu's arm to rapidly rise, and it was about to receive the super large black sphere. His 5 thick fingers spread open and directly grabbed at the black sphere. Chapter 855. The two completely opposite lights that soared into the sky attracted everyone's attention. They stared dumbfoundedly at this unprecedented collision. They all thought that it would be an intense fight to the death. A group of pirates eagerly looked at the destructive black ball in the void. The pirates were full of joy. Once Dustless is defeated by Blackbeard, they can also escape. Leave this place where people and ghosts can't be distinguished. However, it's a pity that these hopeful pirates are doomed to be disappointed. This kind of small trick is not worth mentioning. It's your strongest trick. It's really disappointing. Fearing that Blackbeard could not understand the meaning, Wu-Chen deliberately emphasized the words really disappointing, and lingered in the void for a long time. It seemed to be full of magic and lingered in Blackbeard's ears. Blackbeard was furious. and the chest hair on his belly stood up. In front of so many people he was ridiculed as weak. Even if his skin was as thick as a marine battleship, he couldn't help but turn green. There were faint signs of him going berserk. Caw caw caw. When Blackbeard was angry, there was a sound like glass breaking in the dark void. Looking up, he saw the localized Kansusanu penetrating the black ball. His relaxed and unhurried manner made him look like he was torturing a child. Caw 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 caw. The shattering sound became increasingly intense. The 5 golden fingers penetrated deep into the interior of the black ball and penetrated it. Immediately the ball, which had a monstrous momentum earlier, collapsed and was destroyed in an instant under everyone's stunned and disbelieving gazes. Rice Bucket, I had so much confidence in you. It turns out that you are just a flower vase. Damn, this time I will definitely be suppressed again. That idiot named Blackbeard was so confident. I thought he really had the strength to fight against a Marine admiral. A burst of unscrupulous ridicule and abuse suddenly came. Blackbeard became the target of public criticism. Everyone pointed their guns at him, and did not hesitate to curse. You are a group of unscrupulous things. If it weren't for me, you would still be in prison. No matter how shameless the pirates are, you should at least be grateful to me. I am your savior. After a twitch in the corner of his mouth, Blackbeard roared. You don't have time to worry about others. Think about how you're going to survive. The high-density flash gathered and Blackbeard instinctively closed his eyes. At the same time, his observation hockey spread, and so did armament hockey. Through the perception of observation hockey, Blackbeard can clearly perceive that an attack that can destroy a mountain is locked on him. Lightspeed kick. The motionless Blackbeard was hit. Even with the armament hockey defense, his skin was as tough as iron. In this unparalleled absolute kick, the surface of his skin was crushed. There was an obvious dent, and of course, there were also burn marks. Captain Bagaz, Lafitte, Van Oka, and the other crew members all changed their expressions. They turned around and glared at Dustless with murderous intent. You still want to make a move. But if you're not afraid of death, you can come at me. However, the price you'll have to pay will be even more severe than Blackbeard. This casual sentence made the faces of Blackbeard's few crew members sink, and the surging murderous aura in their bodies wisely restrained and dissipated. Blackbeard fainted completely. His body was covered with blood, and wounds of various sizes were all over his body. He was only one step away from death. If they make a move, their fate will be even worse than Blackbeard's. The meaning is self-evident, that is death. Perona, Hancock, and Khalifa. It's time to retreat. There's no need to entangle. The target is not them. There's no need to care about this group of people. There was no emotion, like a mechanical voice in the ears of the 3 women. The 3 women looked at each other, and immediately moved in the direction of Dustless. Let's go. After looking at the group of pirates, Dustless's mouth swept with a fierce smile and disappeared from everyone's sight with the 3 women. Master, it's not good to turn a blind eye like this, right? Hancock asked unwillingly. How can he let go of a large group of pirates? The group of pirates in Impel Down are extremely evil, and the prisoners at the bottom are even more sinful thugs. If they are released, the whole world will fall into a whirlpool of turmoil, Khalifa said with a frown. Of course I know this. As a Marine admiral, Dustless naturally understands this kind of thing. Many of the prisoners at the bottom of Impel Down were left alone during the time of Roger and Whitebeard. The damage caused by these people is even greater than the Yonko for emperors. In particular, the Marines have imprisoned them for most of their lives, and the 2 sides have long had deep hatred. However, there are more than thousands of prisoners in Impel Down. If we kill them one by one, how long will it take? Sengoku kept urging the capture of Fire Fist, Ace, and Rayleigh. These characters are not the protagonists of this war. Dustless has no free time to play with them. You are a Marine admiral and they are pirates. You won't just ignore them? Perona asked doubtfully. Dustless's indifferent appearance was obviously planning to slip away and abandon them. Let them go? Of course not. Glancing at the women, Dustless was as cold as frost. His eyes were filled with terrible anger, and he said with killing intent, I can only destroy Impel Down. I don't have time to play with them. Chapter 856. Glancing at the few women, Wu Chen was as cold as ice. His eyes were throbbing with frightening hostility. He said with murderous intention, "I can only destroy Impel Down. I don't have time to accompany them." There was a deep chill in his words, and the three women trembled unconsciously. Dustless's ruthless words were obviously not a joke. The closer to the exit, the more corpses there will be. Most of them are the corpses of Marines and some jailers. The way they died was also terrible. They were all sucked dry and only bones were left. This was all thanks to Blackbeard, who took the opportunity to attack Impel Down. The Marines in Impel Down are almost wiped out. At present, only pirates survive here. For world peace, they can only be sacrificed. This is also convenient and fast, and it also saves headaches. Looking at the corpses all over the ground, Dustless said quite casually, "A group of pirates is just dead. Directly destroying Impel Down is the fastest way. There is no extra time to kill them one by one, and the execution is close at hand." The two protagonists, Fire Fist Ace and Rayleigh, are naturally not missing. In the future, I must tear that bastard Blackbeard into pieces. As soon as he stepped out of the exit of Impel Down, a low roar of anger came with the breeze. Dustless's eyebrows were slightly raised and he rushed to the place where the sound came from. Fire Fist Ace and Rayleigh came into view. "What you want to do, I helped you do it, and it can be regarded as helping you realize your dream," Dustless said quietly. If Blackbeard doesn't die in front of him, he won't be spared when he destroys Impel Down. Then the thread of conversation changed. Dustless sneered. "I helped you realize your dream. Now it's time for you to repay me. It's your turn to help me realize my dream." Fire Fist Ace and Underworld King Rayleigh's expressions froze. Both of them were smart people. The meaning of these words was to help Dustless complete his dream of execution. "Run now. I don't know where the Admiral went. Seize the opportunity. Bastard, don't block my way. Get out of my way." Behind him, in the dark passage that connected to the interior of Impel Down, there was a scrambling noise, and the ground was also throbbing. A large wave of prisoners was frantically running in the direction of Dustless, that is, the exit of Impel Down. "Just wait for death obediently. Why do you have to put up a last-ditch struggle?" Raising his eyebrows, Dustless's body erupted with dense chakra. When his hands touched the ground that was originally trembling suddenly began to tremble. It was as though some kind of monster was breaking out of the ground. The ground actually protruded strangely. Vaguely, one could see 5 huge green-faced fanged doors protruding from the ground. 5 Rashomon. The light of dawn was blocked by the gate that suddenly rose from the ground. The pirates stared at the decaying gate and tried to bombard it with their own abilities, but they couldn't move it. "A bunch of idiots. The defensive power of the 5 Rashomon I released with my full strength is far beyond Senju Hashirama. You want to break through it? It's still a few decades too early." Hearing the unwilling roar from inside Impel Down, Dustless sneered again and again. "Then it's you two." Looking around Rayleigh and Fire Fist Ace, Dustless's eyes began to change, and the mysterious Magatama on his face was clearly visible, exuding an ominous aura. "Let's go together." Fire Fist Ace and Underworld King Rayleigh glanced at each other, then immediately turned into a storm and pounced over. They couldn't go to heaven and there was no door to the earth. Since that was the case, they could only make a final struggle. Seeing this, Hancock, Khalifa, and Perona looked at each other and resolutely stood in front of Dustless. "Go back. The 3 of you and the 2 of them will only drag on for longer and longer." Taking a step forward, his Sharingan surged with a faint ripple that was almost negligible. Even so, Rayleigh and Fire Fist Ace, who were staring at Dustless's every move, were stunned and immediately fell to the ground. Hancock, who was accustomed to Dustless's strength, could still remain calm, but Perona and Khalifa were stunned. They just glanced at the 2 of them lightly and Rayleigh and Fire Fist Ace fainted. It was so easy to kill Rayleigh and Fire Fist Ace. This is obviously beyond the limits of human cognition. Even if Roger, the Pirate King, returned from hell, he couldn't do this. This is not the limit that humans can reach. "Don't worry, this is just a little trick like genjutsu. It's getting late, it's time to leave." Seeing Khalifa and Perona petrified, Dustless impatiently urged them. It was just genjutsu, and he immediately left safely, leaving the two of them with his back. Don't worry. Hearing this, Perona and Califa looked at each other, and could see the speechless shock in each other's eyes. If the other party was an ordinary pirate, they would definitely not care, but one is the son of the Pirate King and the other is the right-hand man of the Pirate King. With just a glance, the two of them lost their fighting power. The gap is too big. Next, it's your turn. Hancock, Califa, and others left on the battleship first. Dustless covered himself with a high-density chakra that was nearly 200 meters high. A monster wearing heavy armor and a Tengu helmet instantly appeared. He was like a warrior that had walked out from ancient myths and legends. How small was the heavens and earth before him. Being affected by the golden light from the giant's body, one would feel despair. Chapter 857. The giant in front of him is exaggerated beyond the imagination of the world. It is not an exaggeration to say that he is a demon that destroys the world. The two slender ancient swords on his waist are enough to kill everything in seconds. Ka ka ka. On the vast island, suddenly there was a sound of land collapsing, and immediately there was a depression in the central area. It seems that I don't need to do anything. Impel down will be finished. Looking at his feet, Dustless was speechless for a moment. For the first time, he felt that Consisinu was such a hindrance. The collapsed land could not bear the weight of Consisinu. Like a spider web, the ground slowly sank, and the sea water overflowed to the land. Buzz! With a loud and clear sound, the long sword on his waist came out. Dustless on top of Consisinu's head stared indifferently at the island below. Nearly 200 meters in the sky, at the moment, it was particularly small in his eyes. Disappear. The tachi of light fell from the sky, and impelled down in the depths of the sea. Even the entire island was destroyed and penetrated by the golden light. Ka ka ka. Impel down was divided into two, and the surrounding islands could not escape the nightmare. Under Kinsusinur's all-conquering destructive offensive, no one could escape. There were a large number of sea kings in the surrounding sea area. Countless broken bodies and blood mixed in the sea. The top predator in this sea area, the Sea Kings, heard the news and came. Marine headquarters is full of Marin. The densely packed Marines are waiting, thousands of them, more than imagined. They are stepping up to modulate various instruments, and after repeatedly confirming that there is no problem, they left in a hurry. In the Fleet Admiral's office, through the window, Sengoku looked down at the Navy with a soft smile on his old face. His heart was in a mess, but now it was barely stable. The Whitebeard pirates, as well as the forces that were affiliated to him, or the pirates that were indirectly related to him, have disappeared. Even if he doesn't know their whereabouts, there is no doubt that there is only one final purpose. Fire Fist Ace. It's finally here. Looking at the battleship flashing in the distant sea, Sengoku sighed heavily, and his hanging heart landed safely. After a little adjustment, he strode out of the office. The Marine Fleet Admiral's every move represents the entire Marine, and must always be calm. At the large port where the warship was docked, Sengoku and a group of Marine executives couldn't wait, and looked at the soldiers coming down from the ship with eager eyes. It wasn't until Rayleigh and Fire Fist Ace appeared that Sengoku's eyes lit up. Halfway through, Wuchen was attacked and fought fiercely with the prisoners of Impel Down. He knew it like a mirror. Where is that Blackbeard guy? I knew that guy would betray us, but I didn't expect him to have the idea of Impel Down. Sengoku said with a pale face. He knew the prisoners in Impel Down better than anyone else. Many of them were big pirates who were arrested by him and Garp in the past. After glancing at Sengoku, Dustless said lazily, "When I arrived at Impel Down it was too late. Blackbeard had already destroyed Impel Down, and at this point, Dustless looked at Sengoku. All the Marines in Impel Down, as well as the jailers, were killed by the pirates he released." Sengoku's whole body erupted with a terrible momentum, and the soul-stirring pressure directly formed a storm. His whole body flashed with a dazzling golden light, faintly showing the appearance of a big Buddha. This guy. It seems that he wants to kill me. Dustless's eyes flashed with surprise. After so many years in the Marine, It was the first time he felt the killing intent of Sengoku. This wave of killing intent, like the endless sea, should not be underestimated. Finally, where did that Blackbeard guy go? Sengoku asked with a gloomy and hoarse tone. It seemed that as long as Blackbeard was still alive, he would personally kill him. I don't know. Shrugging, Dustless had an expression of not understanding. Sengoku's fierce expression stagnated, and he immediately asked in doubt. You were also in Impel Down at that time. How could you not know Blackbeard's movements? Looking at Dustless suspiciously, Fleet Admiral Sengoku instinctively thought that he was lying. He sank Impel Down, and all the prisoners sank to the bottom of the sea. No one knows whether they are alive or dead, but the chance of survival in that kind of place should be zero. Rayleigh's face was ashen, and his tone was weak in vicissitudes. Sengoku stared at Dustless with scarlet eyes. Seeing this scene, Dustless thought that he would be scolded, but he didn't expect Sengoku to finally smile. Well done. Sengoku did not hesitate to give Dustless an appreciative look. It was not difficult to see that he was extremely satisfied with this result. The pirates in Impel Down are all fierce and murderous. Now that the Marine and the Whitebeard pirates are about to start a full-scale war, there is no extra time and spare manpower to take care of them. Although this method is cruel and cold-blooded, in this special period they can't take care of it. In this way, it is most appropriate to annihilate all of them and bury the dead Marines and jailers. Chapter 858. Although Sengoku was not in Impel Down at that time, he also supported Dustless's approach. The Marine headquarters was still waiting for Fire Fist Ace and Rayleigh, the two biggest protagonists. Naturally, they couldn't delay time, and they couldn't let the group of big pirates escape. The fastest and most effective way was to destroy Impel Down. If Sengoku was in the position of Dustless at that time, he would do the same. It seems that everything is ready. Looking up, the entire Marine headquarters has become an inescapable net. All the mechanisms have been refurbished, and the soldiers are also in high spirits. Everything is ready, except for the Whitebeard pirates, the only supporting actor. Dad definitely won't fall for it. Your deceptive traps won't work at all. Fire Fist Ace roared in a somewhat deranged manner. Since you know he won't be fooled, why are you so excited? It's useless to deceive yourself, Ace. Dustless glanced at Fire Fist Ace with pity. He was afraid that he couldn't even deceive himself. Otherwise, Fire Fist Ace wouldn't be so hysterical. He was just deceiving himself and others. Dark King Rayleigh was silent. He and Whitebeard were from the same era. Dark King Rayleigh knew Whitebeard's temperament better than anyone else. He had a unique understanding of it. Take them away. Sengoku turned and ordered the soldiers behind him. The empty executioner was particularly dazzling. The two protagonists, Fire Fist Ace and Rayleigh, should go up as soon as possible. That's their stage. The object of their performance is also the whole world. They really know how to enjoy themselves, and the position in the middle won't be mine. Dustless looked at Sengoku and said. Following his line of sight, under the executioner, there were 4 special seats. Kizaru, Akainu, and Akiji were all sitting on special chairs, but no one sat in the middle position. There are currently 4 admirals in the Marine. In addition to the 3 of them, there is Dustless. It goes without saying who that position belongs to. There's nothing to be surprised about, and there's no need to feel embarrassed. You are an admiral of the Marine, and your status and strength are enough for that position. Sengoku said calmly. Reason said so. If Dustless doesn't live up to his name, it will be difficult for him to sit there. Since you said so, then I won't be polite. Shrugging, Dustless said casually. He just wanted to solve this boring war, and then control Uchiha Madara to destroy Whitebeard's territory, and take it for himself. The position of the Yonko for emperors must take this opportunity. At the same time, the Marine headquarters also turned on the video Den Den Mushi, aiming at Fire Fist Ace and Rayleigh. People all over the world looked at these 2 characters, and the world instantly boiled. Of course, the 4 admirals under the executioner. But in the middle, the most eye-catching in the middle, the most eye-catching, in the middle, the most eye-catching, was the most, 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 the was the most eye-catching, the. This guy. Oh, forget it, Sengoku, who was on the executioner, looked helplessly at Dustless below and was too lazy to talk nonsense. The more Dustless was like this, the more confident he was to take down Whitebeard. In fact, the world is very curious about the youngest and mysterious admiral, but there is very little or no news about him. He is a complete mystery, almost the same as the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Dustless has few opportunities to fight. Generally, people who are worth fighting have been beheaded or locked in the Impel Down, and he has hardly appeared in public for more than 10 years. This is the only time he has appeared in public. In an instant, he attracted the attention of people all over the world. God is really unfair. How can the gap be so big? What an enviable guy. Akiji said with envy. The 3 of them have been busy for so long, but now it seems that they are still comparable to Dustless. The gap between the 2 sides is beyond his reach. Kazan. Turning his head and glancing at them, Dustless closed his eyes again. The more dazzling the position, the more things I have to bear. You know I'm lazy. If I can, I really don't want to be in this position. Sengoku arranged Dustless in the middle of several people, and also secretly said that the person who killed Whitebeard this time must be him. Indeed. These words attracted Akainu and others to nod. As Dustless said, the more dazzling the position, the more burden it means in the future. Yeah. It's strange, it's been so long, that guy Whitebeard hasn't come yet. Is he running away? Kizaru tilted his head, and his performance was quite magnanimous, which is related to his temperament. The Marine has such a big lineup, mobilizing the elites of the world. It's normal for Whitebeard to hide like a mouse. Akainu said with a normal expression. No. Dustless's closed eyes suddenly opened, and his deep and long eyes were like the stars hanging in the sky. Looking as far as the eye can see, the scene under the deep sea can be seen. Don't be careless, this deep sea beast full of fangs has come. Chapter 859. At this time, the Akagami Red Hair pirates also rushed over. Shanks, are we in the wrong place? The sniper of the Akagami Red Hair pirates, Usopp's father, wondered. The sea in the distance was empty, not to mention an island. There was not even a ghost. Impossible. Impel Down is located in this sea. This kind of thing can't be wrong. Beckman, the vice captain of the Akagami Red Hair pirates, said loudly, and immediately grabbed the telescope in Jezeb's hand and swept straight towards the sea ahead. How is it possible? Impel Down disappeared? At first he thought it was because he was old. He rubbed his eyes and looked again. There was no trace of an island within a kilometer, or even farther out on the sea. Maybe we are lost, Jezeb guessed. Although he thought it was a bit of a fantasy to get lost, the facts explained everything. It should be impossible to get lost. We are not new rookies, Beckman said with a frown. The Akagami Red Hair pirates are not stupid enough to get lost. What about Impel Down? Don't tell me that the prisoners inside rebelled and Impel Down was sunk. Jezeb joked, with a hint of ridicule in his words. As we all know, the prisoners in Impel Down all carry chains or sea stone. In their heyday, perhaps these pirates can destroy Impel Down together, but now they are always fish on the chopping board. You all pay attention to this. At this moment, Red Hair Shanks shouted loudly, showing unprecedented caution, and even releasing murderous intent, reminding the crew who were in a quarrel. Red Hair. Jezeb and Beckman looked at each other and shouted in unison, but Red Hair Shanks ignored them and stared at the bottom of the sea with his eyes wide open. The two also looked down at the deep sea, not only Jezeb and Beckman, but also other crew members, including Luffy. What are these things? Human buildings. Luffy, who was nervous, couldn't help but stagnate at this moment. Looking down at the bottom of the sea in disbelief, he could clearly see countless giant building fragments floating on the bottom of the sea. This is Impel Down. Was it really sunk? Jezeb shouted in a daze. His tone was a little messy. This scene, which should belong to a myth, has become a reality. What about Ace? Shanks, you said Ace was locked in Impel Down. Luffy panicked and looked around. He couldn't wait to insert his neck into the sea to see what was going on. He could clearly see that Impel Down, or the island where Impel Down was located, was cut in half by the destructive force. It may be publicly executed in the Marine headquarters, red-haired Shanks said with an ugly expression. He had reached his maximum speed, but he was still one step too late. Buzzing, Shanks red hairs pirates, Shanks himself, Shanks, red Shanks he himself, Shanks himself, Shanks himself. The tremors that came from the bottom of the sea were like a berserk sea king rushing out of a giant whirlpool. Shanks. Go away. Shanks's white Shima shunnies. Splash. The huge shadow on the surface of the water rose out of thin air, and the mysterious battle record revealed his hideous and damaged face. Then several figures came out. They were the prisoners who had been imprisoned in Impel Down. It's you, looking at his old enemy. The scar on the corner of Shanks' eyes began to hurt faintly, and his whole person erupted with a piercing killing intent, locking on the opposite person who was as ugly as a pig. He's a metahuman, but he can actually escape from the water. Hey, don't be surprised, Shanks. I swallowed hundreds of kinds of fruit. This little trick is just a trivial matter for me. The signature smile fell, and Blackbeard floated into his eyes. There are many Marine headquarters. Aokiji and Akainu and others may not see it, but Dustless has the Tensigan, and his detection ability is far better than the Byakugan, and he naturally sees the abnormalities under the sea. As many as dozens of pirate ships, even more pirate ships came quietly. It seems that in order to save Ace, Whitebeard really went all out this time. Dustless counted the number of pirates, but it was a little dazzling, like a school of fish on the bottom of the sea. It was difficult to calculate how many there are. Pucci in the inner harbor, huge waves were set off on the surface of the water, and then all the Whitebeard pirates broke out of the water and appeared on the sea. Not only that, but violent vibrations came from 3 directions. Has this old guy already calculated? These 3 destructive shockwaves were all caused by the captains of the Whitebeard pirates, and the majestic destructive power erupted, trying to tear the entire island apart. Seeing this, the 3 admirals rushed to stop them. Seaquake. Seeing this, Whitebeard's anger flashed with a smile, and he condensed a powerful force in his hands, and the whole sea churned, and an unprecedented wave was formed, and it crushed towards the Marine headquarters. So that's how it is. Is this your plan? Dustless sat down and didn't get up. This big wave was enough to swallow the entire island, and it was obvious that Whitebeard deliberately targeted him. Chapter 860. The overwhelming waves swept across the endless sky, and the whole sky was extremely dark, as if the end of the world, with a cold and desperate atmosphere. Looking at the tsunami that was about to annihilate the Marine headquarters, or the entire Marlin, all the Marines' hearts were covered with a haze that could never be waved away. They never felt that death was so close. The eyes of the Marines were surprisingly consistent as they looked at the Moby Dick's body. The scars all over his body were the direct proof of his battle experience. He was an invincible, peerless existence. This scene. It's an epic scene. Looking at the look of all the Marines, Dustless secretly smacked his lips. Some of the Marines even looked at Whitebeard with worship in their eyes. Will they betray us, my Lord Marshal? For these Marines who are not firm in their stance, Dustless has deep doubts. Maybe Whitebeard will tempt them a little, and these loyal Marines will choose to abandon the dark and join the Whitebeard pirates. You still have time to talk nonsense. Sengoku looked at Dustless, who was gloating, and suddenly shouted. Don't forget, you are now an admiral of the Marine, not a cheerleader of Whitebeard. Dustless waved his hand and motioned Sengoku to calm down. This kind of trivial matter, just leave it to Kazan. Still sitting leisurely in the chair, he looked in the direction of Aokiji, and saw that he immediately reacted. His whole body jumped up, and cold icicles were thrown along his arm. Ice Age. The moment the insignificant icicles touched the waves, the latter turned into endless ice and solidified on the sea, blooming with beautiful luster, full of artistic sense. I said, you have to believe in your subordinates, Sengoku. Wu-Chen looked as if he had expected this. He sat on the chair calmly without moving. If he could slack off, he would slack off as much as possible. A gust of wind blew over the sky, and then the sky dimmed, turning into a dreamy blue luster, and the ground reflected the shadows of mysterious creatures. That's Whitebeard Pirates 1st Division Captain Marco. Don't let him cross the execution rack. He's going for Fire Fist Ace. Stop him. That's easy for you to say. He can fly in the sky and ignore the attacks of artillery shells. We can't just grow wings and chase after him. Marco, who was flying freely in the sky, attracted the attention of the Navy like a black hole, and they all raised their guns and cannons and fired at him. Bang bang bang. However, the effect was negligible as Marco dodged all of them skillfully. Even if a lucky bullet penetrated him, his body would be restored to its original state with a blue light of recovery. Can this guy come back to life? The Marines below swallowed their saliva and were stunned. The cruel reality made the young Marines stay in place. This was the most ironic thing in the world. The enemy is right in front of you, but you can't touch him even if you try your best. If you want to shoot me down, at least you need to send a Marine Admiral to me. As you wish, Marco. Marco's contemptuous voice hasn't fallen yet, and the golden beam rose from the ground. In just a moment, the light stayed behind Marco's body. I haven't seen you for many years. You're more arrogant than before. Glancing at Marco beside him, Dustless's fist was swallowed by black, and the shining edge was as hard as steel, mercilessly hitting Marco's head. Boom boom boom. The ground suddenly splashed smoke and dust several meters high, and there was a burst of caw shattering. Marco's body was wrapped in blue flames, and it was like a fairy scattering flowers. Marco! Whitebeard roared at the sky, and the roar in his mouth emitted a very oppressive haushiko haki, which turned into a strong shock wave, and the Marines around him were directly wiped out, foaming at the mouth, rolling their eyes, and even their eardrums were shattered. Cough cough cough. Dad, I'm fine, he can't hurt me with such a fragile fist. Marco, who was trying his best to support his body, laughed and then turned to look at Wu-Chen. His face changed faster than flipping a book. His father's murderer's face was fixed on Wu-Chen. The Whitebeard Pirates are coming to an end today. Come on, let me see how much you've improved over the years. If you can force me to take a step back, you win, Marco. Dustless arrogantly provoked Marco. Ha ha ha, sure enough, hearing the sarcasm and disdain in Dustless's tone, Marco immediately spread his wings and flew high. The Whitebeard Pirates were his everything, and Dustless dared to look down on them, which indirectly touched Marco's reverse scale. Dragons have reverse scales, and those who touch them will die. What kind of creature is it? It's strange enough to wear glasses. Marco burned with beautiful blue light, and turned into a big bird with an unknown body. The funny thing is, this bird actually wore glasses. Hum hum hum. Marco swooped down like an arrow with his mouth wide open, as if he wanted to tear Dustless apart. Lightspeed kick. With a sneer, the flash of light that had been condensed on his feet for a long time swept past, leaving behind a series of afterimages in the void. Unlike before, the lightspeed kick this time did not explode. Instead, it passed through Marco's chest and tore a hole in his body. Chapter 861. The battle cries and shouts of killing connected the sky, and both sides were red. They belong to the existence of endless antagonism, and when they meet the enemy, they will not be merciful. Just like now, Dustless is crushing the essence of the immortal bird, Merciless. Hey. His calm face was a little loose, and he was slightly surprised. Looking at Dustless's line of sight, Marco's open stomach wound was burning with warm blue dreamy flames, and the big hole gradually healed, in just a few breaths of time. It was as perfect as before. The only difference was that Marco was sweating profusely, as if he had suffered a great deal of pain. He fell to the ground powerlessly, gasping for breath. He looked like he was about to die. What an amazing fruit ability! Dustless nodded slightly. This was not the elemental transformation of a Logia ability user, but the rebirth flame of the immortal bird fruit, which repaired the previous wounds one by one. However, It was not difficult to see from Marco's panting body that this was also extremely exhausting. Just now it was the heart. This time, the head was destroyed. Can it be reborn? The moment the cold voice fell, a dazzling flash condensed on the toes, and the pirates and marines who were fighting near Dustless instinctively closed their eyes. Isn't it a bit too similar? Quietly lighting a cigarette, Kizaru turned his head and looked at the magnificent flash condensed by Dustless's feet. Even with reading glasses, his eyes were strange. Dustless's fruit ability was too similar to his, and even the tricks were the same. Hey! In his ears, the roar gathered and did not dissipate. Looking up, a beam of light swept straight, and the direction locked was Marco's head. A rare sense of death arose spontaneously. Boom, boom, boom. The blazing flame rose into the air, repelling a strong shock wave, and the marines and pirates who were fighting around were blown away. Under the attack of this heat wave, it was difficult for living creatures to survive. Well, Dustless's brow wrinkled and squeezed together, and he was keenly smelling something wrong. In the flame, he could vaguely see a huge figure standing beside Marco, shining brightly, and the light was as hard as iron. After a long while, the flames gradually extinguished, revealing a towering and sturdy body. Diamond jaws. The diamonds all over his body were clearly visible, protecting the diamond jots. Marco, who was behind him, was also safe and sound. When the light-speed kick corroded Marco, he blocked the impact with his amazing body and saved Marco's life. Diamonds are the hardest thing in the world. This level of attack can't hurt me, Jot said confidently as he patted the shiny diamond. Seeing this, Marco nodded slightly. This exaggerated defense was indeed difficult to break through. Being able to withstand Dustless's attack was the best proof. In this world, there is no such thing as an invincible ability. Everything has its limit, just like the island under our feet. Once it receives an attack that exceeds its limit, it will be dismembered and destroyed. On the other hand, your diamond is actually the same. You actually thought that your ability was invincible. How sad. How regrettable. Dustless said sympathetically as he examined the diamond jots. Heh, hearing this, Diamond Jots laughed, and immediately his strong and powerful diamond arm bombarded the ice frozen by Akiji, and he pulled out a giant ice meteorite with his bare hands. The meteorite was held high by him, and the sky was dark. That diamond bastard wants to hit us with a meteorite. It's so big, worthy of being the captain of the Whitebeard pirates. They are all monsters. Hurry up and retreat, or we will definitely become a pile of meat. The Marines around were silent, and they were shocked to see Diamond Jots carrying the meteorite. They were desperate, and their legs were soft, and they finally couldn't bear the fear in their hearts and ran away. A group of useless wastes. Diamond Jots curled his lips, and his face was full of disdain. Then he glared at Dustless and threw the meteorite in his hand. Armament hockey hardening. Dustless's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he jumped up. In front of the meteorite, the human body was not worth mentioning, but even so, his arm was like a willow branch. Caw caw caw. The cracks as thick as an arm instantly spread throughout the entire body of the meteorite, and immediately under everyone's surprised gaze, it turned into countless small ice cubes. So simple. Diamond Jots, who didn't react for a while, was petrified on the spot. Although he expected the ice meteorite to be destroyed, it was as simple as eating and drinking, far beyond his expectations. It's not in line with the script he imagined. Jot's right side. A black wind swept over, and Diamond Jot's eyes were empty. Apparently he was still in shock, and Dustless took advantage of it. Despite being reminded by Marco, Diamond Jots realized that it was Dustless, but it was too late, and the fist covered with armament hockey roared. Ka ka ka. The unparalleled bombardment hit Diamond Jot's body, and the diamond covering his skin suddenly shattered. White powder could be seen. All of it was the diamond powder after being destroyed, and his right arm, which was completely made of diamonds, was torn apart. This seemingly simple punch instantly hit him hard, and as Dustless said, there is no invincible ability. Once the attack exceeds the limit of the body, it will collapse. Chapter 862. The white powder fluttered in the wind, weak and powerless. Looking carefully at Dustless's thin arm, all the pirates and Marines took a deep breath. The Marines were encouraged and the pirates looked at Dustless in horror. At this level, you too want to use the Marine headquarters as your stage. You are still too far away. His voice was like steel, without any emotion, filling the ears of all the pirates and hitting their confidence. After today, the era of Whitebeard will come to an end. This guy. Not good. Marco's heart was cold and he didn't even care about Diamond Jozu. Dustless's invincible offensive shocked all the pirates. Some of the fence-sitters' eyes flashed with fear, and they looked like deserters. We are pirates. Now we are in the Marine headquarters. If we want to live, we can only fight to the death. Marco shouted. The Marine headquarters will be flattened and the Whitebeard pirates will dominate the new world. When the time comes, all the people who help Ace will get benefits. The members of the Whitebeard pirates are fine. Everyone is a family, but in this operation, Whitebeard has invested a lot of money. Some of the forces of the Whitebeard pirates were also brought by Whitebeard to make up the numbers. And it is inevitable that there will be fence-sitters. That's right, this is the Marine headquarters. We can only fight. If we don't kill the Marines won't let us go. Marco's words acted like a deadly poison, annihilating and eliminating the mentality of all the pirates to escape. The timid pirates immediately turned back to shore and stared at Dustless with awe-inspiring eyes. Such a good eloquence, it's a waste of talent not to be a politician. Dustless looked at Marco with contempt. It was rare to see a pirate like Marco who could bewitch people. But, you talk too much. A bright light appeared on his fingertips, covered with a majestic penetrating force, enough to easily tear people apart. Marco was shocked when he saw this and quickly avoided it. Hey! However, a light flashed and Dustless seemed to be able to predict the future. He came behind Marco in advance and condensed a high-density light on his fingertips again. Poochie! Blood flowed out of the corner of Marco's mouth. His chest was pierced and burned, and he could see the other side of the battlefield. Boom boom boom. The dark blue dreamy flame burned on his wound once again. However, before Marco could repair his body, a heavy blow that could collapse a mountain sent him flying, and the buildings in the distance were reduced to rubble. Ka ka ka. Countless ferocious cracks spread out in the void, and powerful fluctuations of power that were enough to destroy the entire island came from behind. And even because the power was too terrifying, the entire Marine headquarters, no, the entire Mare Infanta was shaking. Behind Dustless, everything suddenly turned pitch black. This world-destroying power had locked onto him. Looking up, it was Whitebeard, whose eyes were about to split open, severely injuring his two precious sons. There was no doubt that Whitebeard was enraged. He planned to personally take revenge on Dustless. This energy fluctuation that could instantly kill everything was about to destroy Dustless. Ka ka ka. The air violently vibrated. Whitebeard clenched his fist and used all of his strength to punch out. Kinsusanu. Aware of the destructive fluctuations behind him, Dustless's body overflowed with dense chakra, and a large skeleton solidified, protecting Dustless in it. Ka ka ka. The moment the golden localized Kinsusanu flashed, it ushered in a devastating blow and turned into raindrops. Before Whitebeard's fist touched Dustless, Kinsusanu on his body was crushed by the cracks in the surrounding space. Dustless's whole body was exposed to the impact of Whitebeard. Die for lousy. Seeing that Kinsusanu's defense was broken, Whitebeard's eyes were cold, and the sharpness of his fist was more than 3 points. His fist was swallowed by the tempered armament haki, and he smashed toward Dustless's head, trying to kill him. Ka ka ka. Even because the power was too shocking, the ground of the Marine headquarters was torn into an abyss, boundless, almost swallowing the entire island. This was the result of not being hit. It's not difficult to imagine what would happen if a mortal body were to bear this punch. Garp. This old guy Whitebeard seems to be not right. Sengoku's eyes shot a wise luster, and his pupils stared at Whitebeard without moving. He was keenly aware that something was wrong. Whitebeard's strength was far beyond his imagination. Yes. Although I don't know how he did it, he did use some means to regain his former strength. No wonder he dared to go straight to Marlindo. Marine headquarters is in danger this time. Hero Garp also noticed Whitebeard's abnormality. This power that could destroy heaven and earth was close to Whitebeard's peak. The Marines and pirates present stopped fighting and looked at this unprecedented scene with wide eyes. Not only that, but people all over the world who watched this war through the image of Den Den Mushi had their hearts in their throats. Most people thought that the world's youngest admiral in front of them might fall. The whole world abandoned Dustless, only the endless void did not abandon him. Deep in the clouds, in response to Dustless's call, a dark crack with a length of 10 kilometers, or even longer, was torn by a supreme overbearing momentum. But no one in the world saw it. Chapter 863. The dark abyss in the depths of the void was like being torn apart. The uneven gaps were no different from the teeth of a shark, and it was full of soul-stirring power. Through the image of Den Den Mushi, when the world thought that Dustless would be killed by Whitebeard on the spot, his body suddenly erupted like a volcano, erupting with an explosive momentum. The whole person was like an awakened ancient dragon. The vast momentum was boundless, and a hot storm swept out from Dustless's body. Caw caw caw. The crack in the Marine headquarters destroyed by Dustless was getting bigger and bigger, and with the spread of Dustless's momentum, it trembled more violently, and there was a faint tendency to split into two. As Haushikahaki reached such a shocking level, Garp's old eyes widened and his tone was suspicious. It seemed that the scene in front of him was a dream. Everything was so ridiculous and illusory. This momentum of Haushikahaki was extremely overbearing. Being affected by the waves of Haushikahaki, they couldn't help but bow down and they couldn't resist. Armament haki hardening. Leisurely turning back, Dustless's eyes spewed out more cold light, and with a more ferocious force than Whitebeard, he blasted out with all his strength. And even because of the excessive force, the flowing air was crushed. Even the space was faintly distorted. Boom boom boom, the inevitable collision of one big and one small fist. The ground under Dustless and Whitebeard's feet cracked instantly, and the two burst out with a strong impact, forming a large vacuum area. And the Marines and pirates were all killed. Cough cough cough. After a moment of stalemate, the outcome was quickly decided. Whitebeard's face changed greatly, and after a while blood spurted out of his mouth, and his internal organs seemed to be affected, and the blood was uncontrollably vomited. Oyaji! A panicked roar suddenly sounded, and the members of the Whitebeard pirates looked at Whitebeard in disbelief. If they remember correctly, this is the first time Whitebeard has been in this situation. He was beaten to vomit blood. Disappear. His eyes condensed, and the strength in his hand increased by 3 points, and Whitebeard was instantly smashed. Boom boom boom. A cloud of smoke and dust rose from the ground, and then Whitebeard disappeared without a trace. A large wall 100 meters away suddenly shattered, and a huge body lay in it. Looking at this unbelievable scene, the whole world froze in an instant. About a minute later, there was a thunderous roar that could topple mountains and overturn seas. How is this possible? The strongest man in the world actually lost? Idiot! How can a person like Whitebeard fail? It must be that Marine Admiral playing tricks. Damn it, I must be dreaming. Come here. Let me slap you. That way, you'll know whether you're dreaming or not. Bullshit, you idiots are mistaken. That young general must be Whitebeard's son. The white-bearded old man didn't want to kill him, so he deliberately went easy on him. Otherwise, how could the strongest man be defeated? Don't forget, he was once the most powerful pirate who rode side by side with the Pirate King. People all over the world who are watching Den Den Mushi are talking about it. Looking at Dustless lying on the rubble, their eyes were completely blinded. Dustless doesn't know what's going on in the outside world. Of course, even if he knows, he doesn't have the leisure to meddle in other people's business. The old man is not only powerful, but his vitality is also surprisingly strong. Ordinary people would have been turned into meat paste by such a heavy attack. Rubbing his sore right shoulder, Dustless was surprised. Whitebeard's state is obviously different from the past. More than 10 years ago he fought with Whitebeard. At that time, Whitebeard was not as strong as he is now. With the passage of time, Whitebeard not only did not weaken, but now he seems to have become stronger. You said that he was an ordinary person. Whitebeard's face was murderous, and he immediately stood up again. The members of the Whitebeard pirates breathed a sigh of relief. Whitebeard is their backbone. Once Whitebeard steps on the road, these pirates will collapse and be annihilated sooner or later. You can tear the island. Looking at the large cracks that almost swallowed the entire marlin, Dustless suddenly pointed to the sky. And I can tear the sky. Deep in the sky, the dark abyss that stretches for several kilometers, or even farther, seems to be able to swallow the whole world. Hearing this, Whitebeard was indifferent, and his face did not change. He has been drifting in the sea for a long life. He has witnessed great winds and waves, and it is impossible for him to be frightened by this battle. It's a close call. Sengoku on the execution platform was relieved. He and Dustless had planned to fight, but they didn't expect Whitebeard to be suppressed by Dustless in the end. Oyaji. Fire Fist Ace's face was full of self-blame and guilt. Looking at the pirate corpses all over the ground, he felt ashamed. If it wasn't for him, none of this would have happened. Looking straight at Whitebeard, seeing that he was still confident, Dustless frowned slightly, and a hint of doubt flashed in his heart. Could it be that this old guy can awaken his devil fruit? Chapter 864. The so-called fruit awakening is actually a higher ability than the devil fruit. After awakening, there is no doubt that the strength will be different from the original. Whitebeard. Even if he can awaken Tremor fruit, Gura Gura no Mi, it is a matter of course. The doubts were quickly relieved. Doflamingo and even some of the prison guards in Impel Down have awakened devil fruit. It would be strange if Whitebeard, who has been at the top for decades, did not awaken devil fruit. Boom boom boom. Dense cracks once again appeared in the space around Whitebeard. This time, they were even more numerous than before, as if they were about to swallow the entire sky. The scene was exceptionally horrifying. Ka ka ka. In an instant, the entire sky above the Marine headquarters collapsed and was destroyed, like a broken mirror. Bastard Whitebeard, this damn old guy. All the Marines quickly get down and grab the ground. Fleet Admiral Sengoku looked at the miserable sky, and his face changed greatly. He immediately shouted at the Marines who were fighting below, and his tone was full of panic. What is? Dustless frowned slightly and looked at Sengoku, but his face was full of fear and even fear. Not only him, but Garp beside him was also doing his best. Break for me. Biting his teeth, Whitebeard's powerful roar resounded through the sky, and then the sky was filled with cracks, and the entire Marine headquarters was instantly dark. The sky that was shattered by Whitebeard was dark, and immediately a majestic gravity shot down from it. It turned out to be shattering the entire sky, swallowing the Marine headquarters with the help of the gravity in the universe. No wonder Sengoku is so nervous. Once swallowed, the Marine is equivalent to being wiped out. Dustless nodded slightly and noticed that the trembling island below had strangely left the sea and began to float up. But then again, I didn't expect the Tremor fruit to be so extraordinary. Looking up at the black sky, the gravity shot down from the hole was enough to tear everything apart. Many Marines had been crushed, but the pirates were safe. Obviously, Whitebeard deliberately controlled it. Even Dustless felt that his body was shrouded in a majestic gravity, and his arms had begun to distort and deform. To be able to die under this move, you can rest in peace. If it weren't for the fact that I had no other choice, I wouldn't have used such a dangerous move. You should be proud of yourself. Whitebeard sighed. He didn't have enough energy left. Clearly, this move had consumed a lot of his energy. You want to defeat me with such a superficial move? Looks like you haven't woken up yet, Whitebeard. Dustless sneered as he glanced over. Boundless chakra appeared around his body, containing boundless vitality. A huge Buddha statue appeared behind him. His body swept into the air, and the shadow of the Buddha covered the entire Marine headquarters. In an instant, the gravity of the broken black sky became much smaller. Would escape. Immortal technique, true thousand hands, puppet atop. The dense Buddhas were stacked together, forming an unprecedented Buddha. Its area was larger than the marine headquarters, and its huge shape covered the black hole in the void in an instant. Gulp. Not only Sengoku, Garp and the others, but even Whitebeard himself looked at the giant Buddha floating in the sky in horror. Its body was so huge that Whitebeard suddenly felt that he was as small as a bug. Bang bang bang, as Wu Chen's voice fell, the huge Buddha statue's arms all struck out. The number of arms was dazzling. There were more than 10 million of them, and the power of each fist was beyond imagination. The darkness in the horizon was fragile like a thin film. It collapsed and was annihilated in an instant. The huge Buddha statue also disappeared. The void cleared up again. Is it hard to believe? Don't be surprised, it's actually that simple. Seeing Whitebeard looking at himself like a monster, Dustless said lightly. When he was fighting with Kagaya, what kind of battle had he not seen? The battle between Dustless and Kagaya is a battle based on the whole world. Now Whitebeard can only be said to be a showy and impractical technique, vulgar. It's far from over. His tired eyes erupted with cold light again. Whitebeard waved his left arm, and the void shattered. A door-like crack appeared, and he immediately stepped into it. This is shattering space. Achieving the effect of crossing space? There is such an ability. It's really convenient. Dustless sighed, and immediately the space behind him burst. And then Dustless felt a pain in his chest, and the big sword wrapped in domineering aura penetrated his body. Like a ghost, Whitebeard came out silently. His face was ferocious, and the big sword in his hand turned, crushing Dustless's internal organs. Bastard Whitebeard, I must tear you to pieces. Sengoku burst out swearing and glared at Whitebeard. His killing intent soared. His fruit ability was launched, and his whole body was covered with golden light. In broad daylight, this guy killed a Marine Admiral. Don't think that I am cruel. This is the price you pay for killing so many of my sons. Pulling out the big sword, Dustless looked at the bloody hole, and breathed a sigh of relief. He thought that Dustless would fall, but suddenly he felt a burning pain in his chest. Poochie. Exactly the same as Dustless, Whitebeard's internal organs were burned and destroyed. His whole body was penetrated, and even half of his heart was missing. How is this possible? Looking at the sudden change in shock, Whitebeard, whose eyes were blank, instinctively raised his head. What entered his eyes was Dustless, who was perfect and flawless. His body had recovered to its original size. Nothing is impossible. I have an immortal body in my Jubi body. Chapter 865. Crossing the sea. Whitebeard, who was over 70 years old, looked straight at Dustless, like a child who was new to the world. He didn't understand anything. His face was replaced by puzzlement and shock, and his eyes were wide open. Obviously, he is just a human body. How can he have such a shameless skill like limb rebirth? This was King cheating. I bastard. Even if there are thousands of words in his heart, it is difficult to describe Whitebeard's complex mood at the moment. It is difficult to hide the bitterness in his heart. A person who should have died suddenly came back from the dead. Even with Whitebeard's mentality, he felt absurd. Oyaji! The overwhelming indignation resounded through the sky, and then countless pirates rushed towards Dustless. Their murderous eyes stared at Dustless, full of hatred. This group of people. Seeing this scene, Dustless frowned slightly and immediately sneered. They deserve to be killed. Whitebeard's heart was destroyed and his face was full of anger. He wanted to drink Dustless's blood and eat his flesh. However, when Dustless's internal organs were crushed, this group of people was laughing. Outrageous. Don't come over. The powerful and advantageous burst spread like an explosion. The sound fell into the eyes of every pirate. Looking at Ace on the gallows, their eyes flashed with guilt. Whitebeard could feel his vitality rapidly fading. He wanted to save Ace, but he couldn't. He could only say sorry. He can be buried with Ace, but the others in the Whitebeard pirates can't die like this. Some people have their own families, and even their wives and children. It is too selfish to force them to die together. Boom boom boom, just as he was about to order Whitebeard to retreat, intending to use his last strength to destroy the marine headquarters. Above the ice that was frozen by Akiji, suddenly there was a vibration, and then countless ink dots appeared in the sky and suddenly it became dark. Whitebeard subconsciously raised his eyes. Not only him, but all the pirates in Marlin, including Dustless, also did the same. This group of guys, even if impelled down sinks to the bottom of the sea, they won't die? Frowning, looking at the pirates falling from the sky, and countless pirate figures. Most of them were wearing impel-down prisoner uniforms, and their identity was obvious. Luffy. Garp's eyes were wide open, and his mouth was wide open. He held his head and roared, looking very funny. Members of the Whitebeard pirates listen, attack, rescue Ace and destroy the marine. Even if his heart was destroyed, Whitebeard still roared with confidence. Not only that, but because of the appearance of this group of pirates, his whole face was flushed red and his decadence swept away. It was like the final radiance of the setting sun. Are you kidding me? How did all the prisoners in Impel Down come out? Also, what kind of organization was this? Red Hair Shanks, one of the Yonko for emperors. Jinbe, who was stripped of his Shichibukai title, and Blackbeard, Marshal D. Titch, and the pirates who were imprisoned in the depths of Impel Down. This is bad. Idiot, if you have time to talk nonsense, it's better to retreat quickly, so that you can save your life. Fighting with that group of monsters, 100 lives are not enough for them. The pirates who once resounded all over the world appeared one after another, and some marines with weak will fled. Fighting with this group of monsters is suicide. Plop. However, the group of deserters didn't run for long. The ground under their feet suddenly turned into hot magma, and all of them fell into it without knowing it, and there was no more movement. The fiery red figure was reflected on the ground. It was Akainu who came down with his head bowed. Sakazuki. Those who leave without permission, kill without mercy. Lowering the brim of his hat, trying to hide the cold light in his eyes, Akainu just left a hoarse sentence and leaned towards Dustless without turning his head. A group of soft marines was forced to fight the pirates again. Falling down like this. Are you deliberately looking down on us? The three admirals all approached Dustless. The person who spoke was Akiji, who was covered in ice. Falling from midair also means that they can't make appropriate movements to fight the enemy. This kind of risky move is tantamount to setting fire to themselves. The three admirals all looked at each other and looked at the figures falling from the sky, and they all used their unique skills. It's a pity to keep them alive. Meteor Volcano. The fiery magma fist came out of Akainu's hand, like a meteor shower rising from the ground, and it rushed towards the pirates falling from the sky. Yasakani no Magatama. Ice Age. Kizaru and Akiji looked at each other, and the two of them were unwilling to fall behind, and they used their unique skills. For the first time, the three admirals joined forces to fight the enemy, and the power they exerted was unimaginable, and the colorful light covered the sky. In just a few seconds, 70% of the fallen pirates were killed. As for Dustless, he stood quietly in the same place, in the name of dealing with Whitebeard, but in fact, he was looking at the destroyed marines. Except for some powerful pirates who can escape the joint attack of the three admirals, the others have no choice but to die. Then he sighed. I thought it was a strong appearance to save the world. It turned out to be a group death. Chapter 866. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. Although they fell from the sky, this way of invasion was unexpected, but the drawbacks were obvious. The pirates falling from the sky became the property of Akainu, Akiji, and Kizaru. Boom boom boom. The dense corpses fell and piled up into a mountain. Dustless tried to pick up his hand and count them, but he was a little dazzled. All kinds of corpses were as many as the stars in the sky. Some pirates were burned alive, and their miserable appearance was unbearable to look at. Some were beaten into a sieve by Kizaru's Yasakani no Magatama, and some were frozen into ice sculptures by Akiji, smashed into the ground, and died. It's a pity. Red Hair Shanks and Blackbeard became a shield for them. Looking as far as the eye could see, Shanks and Blackbeard, who were extremely powerful pirates, were not affected by the explosion and landed safely. The previous group of people were all cannon fodder. In the end, pirates are still ruthless. This battle formation is really scary. Kizaru touched the stubble on his chin. Although his tone was extremely lazy and frivolous, his cautiousness could be easily heard. 2 Yonko for emperors, plus 2 former Shichibukai, and a large number of other pirates. The scales of victory seemed to be tilted towards pirates. Ace, I'm coming to save you. Looking around, Luffy immediately fell on Ace, who was on the execution table. Luffy cried with joy, his rubber body waved, his arms pulled the surrounding buildings tightly, and then he jumped out forcefully. We 4 admirals are here, kid. It's a bit unreasonable for you to ignore our existence like this. After the flash of light gathered in the void, Dustless slowly emerged from head to toe, blocking Luffy's way. And at the same time, a high-density flash condensed in his hand. Hey! A sound fell, and the light beam whistled towards Luffy. Even if it was rubber, it was hit by this light beam that was enough to penetrate steel. And the end was miserable. Death's eyes. In the direction of the light beam, a similar repulsive force intervened horizontally, deflecting its trajectory, and it fell on the ground, causing a huge explosion. The devastated island was even more unbearable, and it was likely to tilt and collapse at any time. Even a character like you came out. His eyes moved and fell on the initiator, Monster King Ivankov. After Dustless sneered, a faint light swept out of his palm again. Laser. The speed was extremely fast, and the light of destruction couldn't be captured. Even if he wanted to help Luffy, he could only watch the light beam go away until it finally swallowed Luffy. Boom boom boom. The sky, the sky, the sky, the sky, the sky and the sky, the sky and the sky, the sky, the sky and the sky, the sky, the sky and the sky, the sky, the sky, the sky T. Of SC. S's I zest. Luffy. Since Luffy, he testes his, T, S's, and he and, of. The moment Dustless defeated Luffy, he clearly sensed several sharp lights rushing toward him. It was obvious that they wanted to throw him into the sea and feed him to the fishes. Light speed kick. Dustless caught the trajectory of one of the black shadows and kicked it mercilessly. Boom boom boom. The fireball rose to the sky again, and a huge hole appeared on the ground. A black shadow nimbly avoided the fire and stood aside, wiping his sweat. Do you think I'm an idiot? It's impossible to hit me again after I've been hit once. Ivankov said proudly after he escaped from the fire. However, before he could be arrogant for long, the light beam behind him swallowed him whole. Boom boom boom. Ivankov was severely injured. He knelt on the ground, covered in cuts and bruises. However, he was obviously stronger than Luffy, so he could still maintain his consciousness. What you said just now, I'll take it as a fart. Dustless glanced at Ivankov with sympathy and said contemptuously. Some people had used the same trick once, but it didn't work on Ivankov. However, some people could use the same trick many times, but it would work instantly. At the same time, with the reinforcement of the pirates in the city, the Whitebeard pirates were encouraged and approached Executioner, as if they had been injected with chicken blood. It seems that we can only implement other plans. Looking down at the pirates below, Sengoku finally made a difficult decision, and ordered the guards behind him. Cut off the image Den Den Mushi immediately. The guards saluted and nodded, following Sengoku's instructions. After a while, the Den Den Mushi connected to all parts of the world was cut off, and Marlin's situation was unknown. This unprecedented riot seemed to be over. Execute the 2 of them now. Looking at Rayleigh and Fire Fist Ace, Sengoku ordered shamelessly. There was still half an hour before the execution time. Obviously, Sengoku wants to solve the 2 in advance and relieve the current crisis of the Marine. As long as Rayleigh and Fire Fist Ace die, everything will come to an end, and Whitebeard, who was seriously injured, is one step away from ascending to the sky. Chapter 867. Sengoku gritted his teeth and said, at the same time, he called the executioner to come quickly and immediately execute Fire Fist Ace and Rayleigh. They are the origin of all right and wrong. As long as the culprit falls, this bloody war will also end. Sengoku. It's not appropriate to do this. Looking at Sengoku, Garp hesitated, his turbid eyes flashed with haze. and his heart fell to the bottom. There is no doubt. With the passage of time, Fire Fist Ace might be able to escape in the end. But now that the execution is in advance, the previous slim hope is about to completely disappear. Whitebeard is just a dying man. He has been burned and pierced by Royce South. In a short time he will die. There is no need to execute him in advance. It will greatly reduce the prestige of the Marine, Garp said as he pointed at Whitebeard, who was killing people in the crowd. Anyone who had their heart incinerated would die. No need. Sengoku glanced at Garp and shook his head resolutely. He knew that Garp had a big idea in his heart and said indifferently, "Garp, remember it clearly, you are a Marine, understand your position." Hearing this, Garp's face was stiff and his rough face could not help but dim. "Get over here and end their sinful lives," Sengoku screamed and immediately ordered the executioner coldly. He was trembling with anger, and his fists were clenched. The Marine corpses below were piled up like mountains. In the final analysis, it was all because of these two men. At the moment when the sharp spear pierced Ace and Rayleigh, a majestic and overbearing ripple swept through the entire Marlin. The executioner and as many as thousands of Marines, without exception, all of them were foaming at the mouth and were stunned by this unparalleled impact. Boom boom boom, many crumbling buildings crumbled and collapsed. There was clearly no substantial attack, but the places that were affected had cracks visible to the naked eye. Using Haoshiku Haki to evolve into a substantial attack, Wu Chen narrowed his eyes and nodded as he looked at the cracks under his feet and around him. His eyes immediately looked towards the instigator. A middle-aged man with red hair entered Wu Chen's sight. The 3 scars on his eyes were clearly visible, the sword in his hand was out of its sheath, and he looked at Sengoku coldly. "This war is already over. There's no need to continue fighting. Otherwise, the casualties of the 2 armies will only increase. Please give me face and let Ace and Senior Rayleigh go." His confident and loud voice spread throughout Marlin, causing everyone's eardrums to feel stuffy. The endless echoes lingered in their ears for a long time. "Let them go?" After a brief loss of consciousness, Sengoku laughed angrily. Looking around, the Marines' overall casualties were more than half, and the Marine headquarters was also torn into an unprecedented abyss by Whitebeard. If Fire Fist Ace and Rayleigh were released, there is no need to think about it. The Marine will inevitably become the target of the whole world. Bullshit. Sengoku's face was cold, and after a thick sarcasm, he was merciless and decisive. Even this rude monologue was tantamount to directly slap Shanks' face, deliberately embarrassing him. Because what Shanks said was unrealistic. How could the Marine just watch the Pirate King's son escape? Dream on. And if Fire Fist Ace was released so casually, the prestige that the Marine had established for many years would dissipate in an instant. Red hair. An indifferent voice came, and Red Hair raised his eyebrows. He always felt that the voice was familiar. His eyes turned, and what came into his eyes was Dustless. "I haven't seen you for so many years. You're much more domineering than before." His eyes narrowed, and a sinister light shot from his eyes, which could see through Red Hair Shanks's whole body. Looking carefully at Red Hair Shanks, he saw his domineering aura, and the sky was crushed by the majestic momentum, and a deep and narrow crack was particularly clear. "I haven't seen you for many years. Sorry, it's really bad for me to see someone like you." Red Hair Shanks saw the appearance of Dustless, and his eyes were densely bloodshot. Touching his empty left arm, a few years ago, this was thanks to Dustless in Fengche village. First, he used a trick to hit Red Hair pirates, and finally, White Zetsu cut off Red Hair Shanks's left arm. The person behind the scenes was Dustless. "But, aren't you too much?" Dustless's smile disappeared, and he put on a cold expression. "You're just a pirate, and you're telling the Marine what to do. Your hand is too long, Red Hair Shanks." Akainu also stepped forward, and the killing intent in his eyes was not hidden. He sneered and said, "Give you face? Who do you think you are? Why don't you give me face and order your crew to give up resistance? And I promise that there will be no pain when I melt them." A pirate, but he was telling the Marine what to do. And he also said that he would give him face and release Fire Fist and Pluton. No matter how arrogant he was, he had to stop. Akiji also frowned. This guy was too arrogant. Rather than saying that he was giving face, it was more like a disguised order threat. A pirate ordered the Marine to release Fire Fist Ace and Dark King Rayleigh. No wonder the war was so angry. It seems that your face is not big enough. Touching his smooth chin, Dustless stared at Red Hair. The failure of the negotiation means that the war will continue. Chapter 868. Red Hair Shanks's face was blue. The two Yonko for emperors teamed up. The Marine was obviously at a disadvantage, and most of the pirates escaped from the Impel Down. There was no doubt that the Marine was at a disadvantage. Marines kept falling to the ground, and immediately closed their eyes unwillingly. Sengoku will definitely not let go if we don't kill Fire Fist Ace and Rayleigh. Dustless shook his head. He understood Sengoku's approach. Although it was only a matter of time before Whitebeard fell, the protagonist Fire Fist Ace and Rayleigh must also die. Otherwise, a great victory would turn into a humiliation that would make everyone laugh at them. Big Fire. With a fierce light in his eyes, Akainu waved a powerful lava fist. The Marines around him asked for help, but Akainu was indifferent. In his eyes, there was only the head of Whitebeard and others. Clang clang clang, Red Hair Shanks rushed over. The sword in his hand swept out, and a faint cold light passed through the lava fist. Kacha! Kacha! The seemingly weak slash easily broke the ferocious lava fist. Not only that, but the slash also became more and more aggressive toward Akainu. Red Dog Tooth Lotus. A huge flaming dog formed from lava gushed out. It opened its big mouth full of sharp teeth, emitting a blazing hot air flow. It simply crushed the cold light that swept over. Kusanagi Cloud Sword. Kizaru compressed a big photon sword, and also helped Akainu to attack Red Hair Shanks. As for Akiji, he was responsible for entangling other pirates. Looking at the bad situation, Sengoku has taken off the clothes on his upper body. Obviously, he also did it himself. It seems that my opponent is still you, Whitebeard. He looked at Whitebeard helplessly. This old man was very powerful, and had a strong vitality. His heart and internal organs had all suffered a destructive blow. He could be said to be just a bag of skin. Even so, the combat strength he displayed was enough to suppress a general, and even severely injure a general. It was not difficult to see how peerless he was when he was in his heyday. Whitebeard's eyes were incomparable, and his whole body was full of the power to destroy the world. Even if he was full of holes, his eyes had never changed. Are you prepared to die? Then I shall fulfill your wish. His snow-white skin changed greatly in an instant. It was replaced by a deep black color. Not only his arms and limbs, but his entire body was the same. The pitch-black appearance of his entire body was shocking to the eyes, causing both sides to be stunned. Whitebeard relied on the combination of Tremor Fruit and Haki to reach this level, and he seems to be able to fight Whitebeard with Haki alone. Rayleigh, the Nether King on the execution rack, said in a hoarse voice. Even though he was trying to hide his calmness, his shivering lips suggested his feelings at this moment. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was in a storm. Boom boom boom. There was an explosion in the air, the violent air scattered. The violent impact destroyed the Marines and pirates around Dustless and Whitebeard fighting. They were affected by the wind. Caw caw caw. The ground under his feet was torn apart, and the slightest collision caused a shock beyond imagination. The tall building of the Marine headquarters was slowly sinking into the ground. Not only did the power not decrease, but it became stronger. Dustless stared at the hole in Whitebeard's chest. It was as if it did not exist, and it did not affect Whitebeard's battle. If you don't do it, then I will bully you. His other arm was raised high, and his fist was covered with a white air shield. The destructive power of the condensation was despairing. Whitebeard sneered and immediately punched towards Dustless's head. The fist that was enough to burn the world was coming, and Sengoku, who was watching the battle between Whitebeard and Dustless, felt his heart jump to his throat. Dustless, on the other hand, did not change his face. His pupils just turned rapidly, replaced by lavender, and the ancient and mysterious Sharingan emerged. Tomb of Samsara, Border Prison. In the invisible world, Wu Chen's shadow galloped over, blocking in front of him like a shield. Boom. 20 or 30 meters away, the wall suddenly collapsed. Whitebeard was stunned and took back his fist in disbelief. It seemed that something had blocked the attack for Dustless. The power is so strong, but what's the use of it? The Sharingan in his left eye surged with a faint ripple, and the mysterious Magatama also trembled. The shadow that suffered Whitebeard's attack rushed out of thin air, and the strong and powerful fist greeted Whitebeard's face. Ka ka ka. The sound of bones shattering rang out in the air, followed by Whitebeard being blasted away. This inconceivable scene made everyone who saw it confused. Dustless didn't even do anything, and Whitebeard was inexplicably blown away. Only Rayleigh on the execution rack was indifferent, because at the beginning, he was also subdued by this mysterious means. Although he knew what was attacking him, he couldn't perceive it. He couldn't see it with his naked eye or observation hockey, so he could only passively take a beating. Closing his eyes in despair, Rayleigh knew that Dustless could not be defeated. Some abilities could be restrained, but there was no way to deal with Dustless's strange trick. Chapter 869. Closing his eyes in despair, Rayleigh knew that Dustless couldn't be defeated. Some abilities could be restrained, but there was no way to deal with Dustless's strange trick. Not to mention a way to deal with it, he didn't even know the principle, and he was inexplicably beaten up without even seeing the shadow of the enemy. In contrast to Dustless's calm expression, Dustless's face was heavy and embarrassed at this moment in the ruins. Touching his bloody left face, the shock brought to him by Dustless made him feel no pain. Clenching his huge iron fist tightly, his heart hurt even more. This kind of feeling is really rare. As everyone knew, Whitebeard was known as an Iron Man. In front of anyone he would not show his weak side, but now he showed a rare hesitation and confusion. Dustless stood in front of Executioner, only a few meters away, but from the beginning of the war until now, no one said that they could cross half a step. Whitebeard always had this kind of feeling in his mind. Half a step away, but thousands of mountains and rivers. And at this moment, the sky once again darkened abnormally, and it was dim. Just a moment ago, it was a cloudless day, and now it was covered by dark clouds. Obviously, someone deliberately did this. Everyone is really having fun. Dustless knew who the newcomer was just by listening to the sinister laughter of the signboard. He looked up and saw Blackbeard with his belly exposed. Of course, there was also his crew following him. "My dear father, you seem to be working hard. Do you need me to help you?" Between the words, there was a deep sense of rebelliousness. Blackbeard looked at Whitebeard with pity, and his eyes were shining. He didn't have this kind of complex human feeling. His eyes were filled with greed. Blackbeard had never been grateful to Whitebeard. Instead, he was filled with hatred. It was Whitebeard who had hurt him so badly that he couldn't raise his head in front of the world government. The Rinnegan in his left eye twisted, and a new shadow condensed and swept toward Blackbeard. Bang bang bang. Boom boom boom. Dustless's shadow grabbed Blackbeard and beat him up. The shadow even used some ninjutsu. He hated this kind of person the most. Whitebeard liked to court death, but that was because he had the strength. He was able to compete with the legendary Pirate King, Gold Roger, which indirectly showed how strong Whitebeard was. However, a rookie at Blackbeard's level who only relied on despicable means to raise his strength was hardly elegant. In the end, he was still tacky. No matter how strong he was still a despicable person. He didn't have the mentality of an expert. Blackbeard didn't notice it at all. He looked at his sunken chest in disbelief. His face was pale, and the corner of his mouth overflowed with stinky blood. Bang! As the strength of the shadow increased, a cracking sound was emitted from Blackbeard's stomach. Soon after, he violently spat out a mouthful of blood, and was mercilessly sent flying by Dustless's shadow. Not only him, but even the crew of the Blackbeard pirates couldn't escape the nightmare. His companions plundered from Impel Down were ruthlessly attacked by Lewin's tomb. Bang! 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 In an instant, the entire Blackbeard pirates were attacked by Lewin's tomb. They were unaware of it and could only be passively beaten. They used armament hockey to strengthen their bodies, and at the same time released observation haki to perceive the movements around them. Even so, they could only be passively beaten. With the naked eye and simple observation haki, the probability of spying on the movements of Luan's tomb is 0. Bastard. Damn it. Who the hell did this? Blackbeard, who stood out of the ruins, roared furiously, using all his means to perceive the movements around him, but in the end he looked like he had seen a ghost. He couldn't detect who attacked them. All the people in Marlin were at a loss. At the end of the day, you're just a mortal. If you want to spy on the mystery of the tomb of Samsara, border prison, you won't be able to reach that realm even if you spend your whole life. At the end of the day, you're just a little pirate who plays tricks. The ruthless, harsh sarcasm fell into his ears and immediately caused Blackbeard's anger. He looked up and saw that the person who mocked him was Dustless. You bastard! Blackbeard was angry, but he didn't dare to say anything. He could only look at Dustless hatefully and look for the traces of the other members of the Blackbeard pirates. He was surprised to find that they were all in the ruins like him. A group of rice buckets. He cursed in a low voice. He was so focused on cursing his teammates that he completely forgot about the fact that Blackbeard had been killed in an instant. Damn bastard, how can he be so strong? Doflamingo, who was peeking at the battlefield in the distance, had a big change in his expression. He was green and white, and his expression quickly changed back and forth. He naively thought that no matter how strong Dustless was, it was estimated that he was at most at the level of the Pirate King. Now it seems that his previous idea was too stupid. This god-level move that killed Whitebeard and all the members of the Blackbeard pirates made everyone shocked, and their eyes almost popped out. The move that came and went without a trace just now was simply the natural enemy of human beings. Chapter 870. At this moment, Dustless was standing safely and defenseless. His whole body was full of flaws. A sneak attack may be easy, but the pirates around Dustless didn't dare to act rashly. They were all staring at each other, and didn't dare to take a step forward. It's not that they are afraid of death, but the previous shocking and perfect attack beyond human imagination. They couldn't resist it at all. Whitebeard and Blackbeard, these energetic prehistoric creatures, were not even a match for one move. Their skinny beginner rookies were even more vulnerable. Therefore, all the pirates hesitated and looked at each other, and they could see the intention of retreat in each other's eyes. You don't have to be crazy with Whitebeard. He is trying to save Fire Fist Ace, and you have no relationship with him. You have no obligation to save Fire Fist Ace. Put down your weapons and stop resisting. Marine can forgive your crimes. Sengoku took the opportunity to confuse the crowd, and his tone was full of endless charm, tempting all the pirates to put down their weapons. Although this was only his heart, it was extremely useful. Many pirates put down their weapons and squatted on the ground. When people are fragile, they always want to find a warm embrace to rely on. Now the same is true for pirates. The only pity is that the target is Sengoku, a smiling tiger. Execute him immediately. On the execution platform, there was a powerful low shout, and then two executioners with cold spears were seen close to Fire Fist Ace and Rayleigh. Seeing this scene, Garp's body moved uncontrollably, and he reflexively blocked in front of Fire Fist Ace, and his strong body was particularly strong. Grandpa! Seeing this scene, Fire Fist Ace trembled and he blamed himself. He looked at the tall figure, and tears came out of his eyes. This scene made those who heard it sad and those who saw it cry. Even Dustless, who had a heart of stone, couldn't help but sigh. Looking at Fire Fist Ace's ashamed face, he secretly sighed that the affairs of the world were impermanent. Garp longed for Ace to become a dragon among men, and become the pillar of the marine. Unfortunately, things didn't go as he wished. Fire Fist Ace went astray, and finally stepped into the wrong path. Now, Garp was stuck between a rock and a hard place. To be honest, Garp was the one who felt the most pain in this battle. Both sides were his own flesh and blood, and he couldn't bear to part with them. Yet he had to make a choice. It was easy to imagine just how much pain he felt. Get out of my way, Garp! Sengoku shouted angrily after his face twitched. The pirates didn't come, but Garp came. Don't forget your position. You are a marine, Not a pirate. Dustless frowned slightly and looked suspiciously at the ground. Through the perception of observation hockey, he keenly smelled something swimming in the depths of the lava, like a fish in water, and not happy. Caw caw caw. The ground shook and burst into pieces, followed by the eruption of hot magma, which extended to more than 10 meters high in the sky. Immediately, in this fountain-like magma, a fiery red figure swept out of it. Immediately, he jumped onto the execution table. His arm was boiling magma, and he went straight to Fire Fist Ace. This unexpected scene shocked all the Marines and pirates. Fire Fist Ace and Underworld King Rayleigh were both bound, and could only watch helplessly as the lava fist approached. Boom boom boom. Garp was restrained by Sengoku. The flame fist destroyed the entire execution table. Fire Fist Ace and Dark King Rayleigh were swallowed by the magma, and it was self-evident what would happen to them. The wooden execution table collapsed and burned into nothingness in an instant, and Garp, Sengoku, and others also fell to the ground. Fire Fist Ace and Dark King Rayleigh were scorched, and some of their organs had melted, and they were dead. Bastard, I'll kill you. Garp, who reacted, his eyes cracked, and his fist instantly turned black, containing strength no weaker than Whitebeard. When he was about to hit Akainu, a flash of light fell from the sky and easily subdued Garp. Boom boom boom. The ground collapsed, and Dustless pressed Garp's head and said coldly, "You are a Marine, and the road is his own choice. There is no need to feel guilty. Yes, you are a Marine hero, but they are the right-hand men of One Piece, and they even have a son who must be executed to purify the world's peace." Seeing Dustless subduing Garp, Sengoku breathed a sigh of relief. If this old guy was really instigated, the blow to the Marine would be no less than the Marine headquarters being sunk by Whitebeard. Even so, Garp stared fiercely at Akainu, Sakazuki. His twisted body was like a large sea king, and his strength was beyond imagination. He was no weaker than Whitebeard. This old guy is hiding his strength. He's not much different from Whitebeard. Wu Chen's eyes were shining. He was sure that if this old guy was determined to kill Akainu, Akainu would definitely die. Haha. At the same time, seeing Dustless slip away, Blackbeard began to take the opportunity to make trouble again, with the same arrogant smile. But this time the target of the attack was not the Marine, but Dustless. This idiot is still thinking about the tremor fruit. Fire Fist Ace was killed. At this moment, Whitebeard was on the verge of going berserk. Blackbeard was so blind that he wanted to touch Whitebeard's monkey butt. He was asking for trouble. A berserk Whitebeard could destroy the world. Chapter 871. Fire Fist Ace was killed. At this moment, Whitebeard was on the verge of going berserk. Blackbeard was so blind that he rushed to touch Whitebeard's ass. It was completely asking for trouble. Whitebeard could destroy the world if he went berserk. Reckless thing. Wu Chen's face was filled with disdain. He mocked Blackbeard for overestimating himself. With Old Tiger's remaining power, even if Whitebeard was riddled with holes, the destruction he caused was earth-shattering. Especially when Fire Fist Ace and King of Hell Rayleigh were mercilessly melted. Not even their bones were left. Caw caw caw. The void roared, and the dense and narrow cracks were clearly visible. The impact of Whitebeard's fist was enough to easily break the world. The entire Marlin Island was crying as if begging for mercy. Boom boom boom. The members of the Blackbeard pirates were hit hard in an instant, and Blackbeard was even more miserable. He bore 80% of the impact of Whitebeard's fist. His whole body was bloody, and his shoulder was smashed. Retreat. Looking at Whitebeard, whose eyes were filled with murderous intent as if he wanted to drag the whole world down with him, Blackbeard was so scared that he trembled. Then, without thinking, he fled without hesitation. Idiot, you think you can defeat Whitebeard with the ability of many fruits? Dream on. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. He looked pitifully at Whitebeard, who was running away frantically. Because this guy was too fat, he was swaying when he ran. It was quite funny, like a roly-poly toy. Dustless placed Shiryu beside him, so there was no need to care about him. Boom boom boom. The big sword in his hand hit the ground, and the whole island trembled. Looking up, it was Whitebeard. This war is over. Whitebeard pirates, all retreat. Although Whitebeard was extremely unwilling when he said these words, he had no choice but to admit that this war had already reached its end. There was no need to continue. They had already lost. Rayleigh and Fire Fist Ace are dead. Oyaji, kill the Marines and die with them. Yes, we must kill the Marines and avenge Ace. We have the advantage, don't be afraid. The surrounding noise and indignation fell into Whitebeard's ears. Although he was moved, he remained indifferent. No matter what, failure was a fact. Even if he stayed, he would not be able to salvage the situation. Instead, he would leave a ground full of corpses. If you're my father, then scram. The Whitebeard pirates looked at the back of Whitebeard, who was determined to die. After tears fell from their eyes, they finally chose to board the ship and leave. You want to run? In your dreams. Akainu snorted, and his body rose from the magma again. When he planned to pursue, Sengoku stopped him. There's no need to pursue. The purpose has been achieved. If we continue to fight, the Navy won't be able to bear it, and this island will collapse soon. Hurry up and organize the Navy to take refuge, Sengoku said with a pale face. Although Rayleigh and Fire Fist Ace were killed this time, including Whitebeard himself, the Marine headquarters, which was heavily damaged, is about to die because of this. If they continue to fight, the entire Marine is likely to be finished. Sengoku can't afford this kind of loss. Akainu, Kizaru, and Akiji nodded and quickly organized the Marine's retreat. If Marin is finished, the entire Marine will be destroyed. At that time, the great victory will be useless. It seems that I have to deal with you. Stretching lazily, Dustless stood up again and moved. His body ignored the existence of the law of gravity and floated in front of Whitebeard, staring at him. Due to the height difference, Whitebeard looked down at Dustless and whispered, "You are the strongest person I have ever seen. Roger is 1,000 miles away from you. There is no comparison at all." Dustless has a lot of dazzling abilities, as well as haki that has been tempered thousands of times. He even has an immortal body and has the ability to regenerate broken limbs. He can be called a perfect and invincible existence. He is invincible in all aspects. But for my disappointing sons, I must drag you down with me. At the end, Whitebeard's old tone was firm again. They are really disappointing, but the entire Marine won't do anything to them. Under the threat of death, these people scrambled to board the ship. The once united and invincible army's morale was in chaos. Don't you understand? Without your protection, they will be the prey of others sooner or later. There are too many people who want them to disappear. The Marine doesn't need to meddle in other people's business. There are too many people who hate the Whitebeard pirates. Whitebeard, the scary tiger, fell. It is only a matter of time before the entire Whitebeard pirates perishes. The most ironic thing is that in the future, there will be a pirate named Edward Weevil. He claimed to be Whitebeard's biological son, but in the end he annihilated the entire Whitebeard pirates. Today, I'll deal with you once and for all. I'll send you to hell to report back. The black sword extended from his hand. It looked ordinary, but it was condensed by yin-yang release. It can be imagined what will happen to a human body if it touches it. Chapter 872. Anything in the world that comes into contact with yin-yang release will collapse. This is the law of iron. And the world in front of him is even more so. As long as it comes into contact with yin-yang release, this god-level technique, everything in the world will collapse. You can die under this technique. You can rest in peace in the underworld. There was a black ripple in the nothingness. Wu Chen waved the black sword condensed by yin-yang escape, and slashed at Whitebeard. Whitebeard instinctively raised his sword to resist. Clang. After the roar fell, the sword in Whitebeard's hand began to slowly collapse. This? What the hell is this? The sword slowly peeled off, as if it was bitten by an invisible monster, inexplicably dissipated. When it extended to his hand, he instinctively threw away the sword that had accompanied him for many years. In a few seconds, the sharp sword that could be called invincible disappeared from the world forever. Absolutely can't be cut by that black sword. Dustless's eyes flashed. Whitebeard was sure that the instigator was the Black Sword, and immediately he quickly pulled away from Dustless. Air shock. With a wave of his hands, two devastating shocks came head-on, and the destructive shock wave came head-on, and the ground was torn into a crack thicker than a person. Kamui. With a sneer, Dustless's pupils rotated sharply, and a strange vortex swallowed him. The majestic impact that wanted to crush Dustless quietly slipped by him, and could not touch Dustless's body. Pucci. Although Dustless was spared, the Marine headquarters Marin suffered a disaster, and was torn apart by the power of despair, and turned into two small islands. Bastard! Seeing this cruel scene, the world in front of Sengoku's eyes turned black, and he vomited blood directly. The Marine headquarters was destroyed and sunk by Whitebeard. How serious is the blow to the Marine? This is like mocking the justice of the sea that is about to fall. Ah! You made our fleet admiral angry, Whitebeard. The consequences are very serious. Looking at the furious Sengoku, Dustless teased Whitebeard. Sengoku? That despicable man. Whitebeard curled his lips and said disdainfully. He had always held a disdainful attitude towards the war kingdom of Buddha. He was the most cunning person in that era. In the Marine, the only one who dares to fight is Garp. Let's stop with the kids. With a stern expression, Dustless's body floated, crossing layers of space and arriving in front of Whitebeard almost instantly. Just in time. With a loud laugh, Whitebeard gathered the power to destroy the sea in his right arm. He was a strength-type player, and fast movement was not his strong suit. A fist bigger than Dustless's head came crashing down. Divine might. His body seemed to be transparent as he ignored Dustless's attacks. He was unable to hit Dustless. This boring war is finally over. Dustless raised his gaze and stared at Whitebeard, who was full of flaws. His expression was cold and his eyes were deathly still. Immediately, the black greatsword in his hand whizzed out, and a black light penetrated Whitebeard's body. Pucci. A conspicuous scar was left on Whitebeard's broad chest, and the invincible momentum that erupted from Whitebeard's body disappeared in an instant. Do you have any last words, Whitebeard? Whitebeard's body slowly collapsed, and all his flesh and blood turned into snow and drifted away. Seeing this scene, the greatsword in his hand that was completely condensed by yin-yang escape also lost its feeling. Last words. Is this a friendly service to the old man? Whitebeard laughed at himself. At this moment, most of his body had collapsed, and only his upper body was left. For Sengoku, I have never held any hatred. Everyone's position is different. Whitebeard has nothing to say about winning or losing. After all, he knows how strong Garp and Sengoku are. But if you meet that bastard Titch, you must help me kill him. For Blackbeard, this despicable and shameless villain, Whitebeard had a deep hatred in his soul. Without his betrayal, none of this would have happened. Everything that happened today was indirectly led by Blackbeard. However, without waiting for Dustless's answer, Whitebeard stepped into the gate of the underworld. The peerless powerhouse who used to dominate the sea in the past, now had no bones left. Titch? That guy Blackbeard. I don't need you to say that. He won't live long. Wu Chun, who was alone, muttered to himself in a low voice. Then he immediately left. Blackbeard would definitely die. Otherwise, it would be a waste of Shiryu of the Rain's chess piece. Boom boom boom. Suddenly there was a throbbing from the ground. Dustless was stunned and subconsciously looked down at the dark crack. It seems that this is the end. Under the ground, the boiling magma was flowing like a fire dragon, and it was constantly rising, and it was about to swallow the entire Marine headquarters. This island called Marintu would soon be completely submerged. Fortunately, the surrounding Marines retreated in time to avoid this monstrous disaster. Sengoku's face was complicated. For Whitebeard, he really couldn't hate him. The dead were gone, and it was too small to hold a grudge. A group of Marines were silently watching Marinadu gradually sinking to the bottom of the sea. Chapter 873. With the passage of time, the Marine headquarters, Marin, gradually disappeared and completely sank into the deep sea. while Sengoku and other Marines could only linger on battleships. A battle that should have been a great victory instantly changed. At least in Sengoku's nostrils, it was extremely stinky. The series of consequences brought about by the destruction of the Marine headquarters is definitely no less than the fall of an admiral. Where are we going now? Kizaru asked Sengoku as he put out the cigarette in his hand. The Marine headquarters sank, and the Marine has become a stray dog in an instant. They must find a new place to recuperate. Hearing this, Sengoku sighed helplessly after a while. He felt unprecedented fatigue all over his body. Looking at the disappearing island in front of him, he felt that it was time for him to retire. Let's temporarily migrate to Mariehua. Sengoku's eyes glowed, and immediately looked at the 3 admirals of the Marine and said in a deep voice, "Soon, I will retire from the position of Fleet Admiral. As for where to build the Marine headquarters, it depends entirely on the choice of Fleet Admiral," Sengoku said seriously as he looked at the faces of Akainu, Kizaru, and Akiji. Obviously, the previous words were not a joke, and Sengoku did not like to joke. This is bad. Thinking of the previous war, Sengoku's heart fell to the bottom. He recommended Akiji to be the next fleet admiral. In this war, although Akiji performed well, he was far worse than Akainu. Akainu personally executed Fire Fist Ace and Rayleigh, during which he also fought Red Hair Shanks. It can be said that he was the most dazzling one besides Dustless. On the other hand, Akiji had no achievements. Although he caught a lot of pirates, it was the kind of harmless. And inside the Akainu world government, most people recommended him to be the next fleet admiral. Sengoku didn't know who the winner was. Boom boom boom. At this moment, the Marine headquarters that sank into the deep sea suddenly exploded, setting off a water column that reached a height of 20 or 30 meters. It doesn't seem right. Marinejois is completely composed of extinct volcanoes. How can it explode? Dustless said suspiciously. He was not interested in who the next fleet admiral was. Who can say for sure about that? Sengoku shook his head. Although he is also very strange, there are countless strange things in the world. There is a saying that things will go in the opposite direction when they reach an extreme. Only unexpected things will happen. Both Akiji and Akainu remained silent, and their eyes flashed with different colors from time to time. It is estimated that they took Dustless's words as wind in one ear and out the other, and they began to think about how to obtain the position of Marine Headquarters Fleet Admiral. Boom boom boom. The explosion continued, and the powerful waves pushed the Marine ships far away. Are you sure you want to step down from the position of Marshal, Sengoku? Dustless took a deep look at the Marine headquarters that was shattered by the explosion. He lazily reclined on the couch. I suggest you don't have this idea for the time being. For now? Why? Sengoku frowned and asked suspiciously. He always felt that these words had a different meaning. Both of them. After either of them becomes fleet admiral, they will force the other to leave. So there will be only one admiral left in the Marine. How long do you think it will be before we perish? Dustless said faintly while pointing to Akainu and Akiji. The opposite characters of Akainu and Akiji are known to the world. After Akainu becomes fleet admiral, I am afraid that Akiji will have no right to speak in the Marine, and vice versa. When Akiji becomes fleet admiral, Akainu will have no right to speak. Hearing this, Sengoku's face suddenly solidified and he nodded stiffly. Indeed, as Dustless said, they are enemies. If it wasn't for Sengoku's suppression, maybe the two would have fought several times. His eyes flickered as he stared at Akainu and Akiji. After Akainu is promoted to fleet admiral, I am afraid that Akiji will leave the Marine. When there is only one admiral left, the Marine will inevitably be difficult to support. Finally, his eyes fell on Kizaru, and his eyes flashed. You don't want to find Kizaru to be fleet admiral, do you? Dustless asked bluntly with a strange face. Why not? Don't underestimate Borsellino's talent. Sengoku did not hide his thoughts. Although he felt that it was not reliable, it was not impossible to give it a try. His character is not suitable to be fleet admiral, and I don't think he is interested in it. Looking at Borsellino's relaxed face, Dustless affirmed. Borsellino has always been uninterested in the position of fleet admiral. Whether it is pretentious or intentional, in short, he has always been very indifferent to the position of Fleet Admiral. How about that? I can't let you be Fleet Admiral. Dustless also shook his head when he heard this. He was not interested in the position of Fleet Admiral. It's better that you continue to be Fleet Admiral for the time being. But at present, the Marine has suffered heavy losses. We can recruit a large number of troops from all over the world. We can reabsorb 2 Marine Admirals. At that time, no matter who is a Kainu or a Kiji, the overall strength of the Marine will not be weakened. We will always have 4 Admirals including me. Sengoku heard this and his eyes scattered. Looking at the decadent Marine, he nodded heavily. It is indeed necessary to increase the strength of the Marine. Chapter 874. After this battle, although Marine has smashed the Whitebeard pirates, the number 1 and number 2 characters Whitebeard and Fire Fist have been buried in the Marine headquarters. According to the characteristics of pirates, the Whitebeard pirates will also collapse in the future, and will be divided into scattered sand. But on the contrary, the Marine headquarters has also been hit hard. Many Marlins have sunk, and a large number of Marines have been injured and may retire, including Sengoku himself has to retire from the position of Fleet Admiral. In fact, Marine is not much better. As Dustless said, either a Kainu or a Kiji may drive each other away when they become Fleet Admiral. The position of Admiral is bound to be vacant and must be replaced by new people. Otherwise, the pirates of all seas around the world are bound to challenge the authority of Marine again. You're right. After thinking for a while, Sengoku decided to take Dustless's suggestion. Dustless smiled slightly as this was expected. It is imperative to absorb elites from all over the world into Marine. This is unavoidable unless Sengoku wants to destroy Marine. With the end of the War of the Best, Marine ended with a great victory. Of course, they also lost a lot of Marine headquarters Marlins, so that they had to go to Mariehua for a while. Although the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, are quite dissatisfied with this, the seriousness of the destruction of Marine headquarters is self-evident. Thinking of the merits of killing Whitebeard and Fire Fist Ace, and Rayleigh the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, are relieved. The merits outweigh the demerits. At this moment in Mariehua's office, there is a different kind of depression. I strongly object. Sengoku slammed the table and shouted at the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. At the beginning, Sengoku talked about a large-scale recruitment plan all over the world, and the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, readily agreed. Although the loss of Marine was not so serious, it has reached the point of breaking bones. It takes a lot of time to recruit on a large scale, so the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, came up with other strategies. This fat man, looking at the fat man on the bounty list, Dustless frowned. The guy in front of him was the pirate who cut off Z's arm in the past, Edward Weevil, with a bounty of 480 million berries. The Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, are now pulling him into the Shichibukai, and there is another person, Dustless has seen before, and he took his ship to the Sabaody archipelago in East Blue. The King of Clowns, Bucky. It's Edward Weevil joining the Shichibukai is really Teacher's arm. He is the initiator. If we do this, it will be too much. Akiji couldn't bear to pull Z's broken arm into Shichibukai. This is too cruel to him. Z has retired. He is no longer the Marine Admiral of the past. The Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, an Admiral of the 5 Elder Stars, Marlins, 5 Elder Stars. To the Gorosei. 2 Marine Pirates 5. Sure. To him. Of the sea. That man. Senguf the Sensenguf the of. To the point, to the Sengoku. Sento the, of the to the 2, to the of to the 2. Sengoku's face was blue. The Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, were obviously determined to pull Edward Weevil into the Shichibukai. What is this Bucky? His bounty is only 15 million berries. How can such a person join the Shichibukai? Kizaru frowned and asked. The so-called bounty is just a general conclusion of a pirate's strength. It can't be taken seriously. Glancing at Kizaru and looking at Bucky's funny nose, Dustless continued. He used to be Roger's crew. Like Shanks, he was Roger's trainee crew. I don't know why he hides his strength. One Piece's crew. Hearing this, Kizara's eyes widened. He wiped his eyes and looked at Bucky. He didn't expect him to be so old. The Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, were silent. Apparently, they agreed with Dustless's statement. When he first met Bucky, Dustless felt that he was very strange, or extraordinary. The Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, are not idiots. It's impossible for them to pull a clown into the Shichibukai. There must be a special reason. And the eyes of the blonde Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars shone. Gecko Moria's performance during the war was not satisfactory. We decided to deprive him of the title of Shichibukai and send someone to kill him immediately. If he is useful, he can naturally be kept alive. If not, this is the essence of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. I'll leave it to you, Lois Nam. Sengoku's eyes were cast over. Dustless nodded immediately. It just so happened that he was going to the New World to grab territory. Killing Gecko Moria was a trivial matter. The Whitebeard pirates were destroyed. His territory was divided by most forces. The whole world was in a mess. Blackbeard took advantage of this period to plunder Whitebeard's legacy. It was as if he had the momentum to become one of the Yonko for emperors. But these are small problems. Once Edward Weevil joins the Shichibukai, Z will probably leave the Marine, or something worse will happen. Speaking of this, Dustless looked at Sengoku with deep meaning. He was Z's old comrade in arms for many years and knew Z's nature. Chapter 875. Dustless's words made everyone's expression stagnate, and they immediately bowed their heads and pondered, secretly thinking about the stakes, and finally came to an amazing conclusion. Admiral defecting, this is not a trivial matter. Seeing everyone's cautiousness, Dustless opened the skylight and spoke frankly. Edward Weevil must not be allowed to join Shichibukai. Biting his teeth, Sengoku stood up again and said for Z. Many outstanding generals in Marine were trained by Z. It's not fair to him. That man has devoted his life to Marine. We can't be so ruthless. The 3 admirals of Marine, as well as most of the vice admirals, including other grassroots officers, were almost all trained by Z. Now that he has outlived his usefulness, it is self-evident that it may cause such a big shock. Sengoku. Hearing this, the Gorosei's face was gloomy, and he released a trace of his own momentum. The whole conference room suddenly heard the screams of ghosts, and he emphasized. This? I don't want to repeat it a third time, don't irritate me. Ka ka ka. At the end of the sentence, the ground and the delicate glass, including the walls, were shaken with countless cracks. Sengoku's face flashed with a touch of unwillingness, but his clenched fist finally came down, and he sat down as if his soul had been taken away, and his face was full of guilt. The will of the Gorosei is above everything. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. In the end, Marine is just a subordinate department belonging to the world government. I am afraid that no one in the world can violate the will of the Gorosei. Edward Weevil and Bucky, the king of clowns, joining Shichibukai is also imperative. About 7 days later, the news that Bucky and Edward Weevil joined Shichibukai, through the government's promotion, swept the world like a hurricane in a short period of time. Edward Weevil's bounty was 480 million berries, but Bucky's bounty was only 15 million berries, which inevitably aroused the suspicion of other pirates. Boom boom boom, there was a sudden explosion in Mariehua's harbor, and the violent vibration attracted the attention of other Marines. By the time they arrived, about dozens of battleships had left the harbor. I said, it's a sure thing that he left Marine. Sengoku even thought that doing ideological work could comfort Z, naive. In a luxurious villa, Dustless was sleeping leisurely on the balcony. Hancock was feeding him grapes, Perona was massaging his legs, and the secretary, Khalifa, was standing in place like a javelin. Following Wu Chen's line of sight, there was a man with a sad face on the bow of the ship. It was the former Marine Admiral Z. What is his purpose for betraying Marine? In order to revenge, Edward Weevil doesn't have to leave Mariehua. Khalifa frowned. The 2 new members of Shichibukai, King of Clowns Bucky and Edward Weevil, are now in Mariehua. If they want revenge, they can directly find Edward Weevil. Z didn't betray the Marine. The Marine betrayed him. Z is going to destroy the entire new world. Stretching his waist, Dustless instantly understood Z's intention. If he left safely, no one would bother him with his former status in Marine. But Z touched a taboo, Power Rock. An explosive comparable to ancient weapons, and its power is even comparable to ancient weapons. If the Power Rock is placed in 3 specific places in the New World, the power of the explosion is enough to destroy the New World. Come here. Hancock. His eyes suddenly turned and fell on Boa Hancock's plump body. Dustless's eyes flashed with covetousness. He hadn't moved for a long time, and his body had already begun to stiffen. You two go out. Waving his hand, Dustless suddenly issued an expulsion order to Perona and Khalifa. Why? Perona and Khalifa looked at each other and asked in unison. Looking at Hancock's red face, their faces flashed with dissatisfaction. Dustless obviously wants to leave Hancock alone. It's not that they are jealous, but this kind of inexplicable expulsion has to be explained. Why? Hearing this, Dustless touched his chin and smiled maliciously. Of course, it's to do things that are not suitable for children. If you two are willing to join, I don't care. Anyway, I'm very strong, and I can regenerate organs. That kind of thing, hee, you know? Perona and Khalifa blushed when they heard this, and they glared at Dustless fiercely and hurriedly fled. Food and sex are human nature. What's so shameful about it? I wanted to pull them into a group and have a good time. Dustless rolled his eyes and was speechless. He immediately took Hancock into his arms, and the dry corner of his mouth met her red lips. He didn't think there was anything wrong with indulging once in a while. Life is to indulge in pleasure. About a few minutes later, there was a sound of ecstasy, and it made people daydream. It wasn't until the sun set that Dustless reluctantly climbed out of Hancock's body. He planned to go back to his room and sleep, but he didn't expect an unexpected guest to visit. And it was a big person that Dustless had to meet. Chapter 876. The newcomer had a stocky build and a mohawk hairstyle. His muscles were as thick as a human's leg, and he was awe-inspiring even without being angry. Just a glance from him was enough to make people unable to resist. It is the former Marine Fleet Admiral Sky, the current Commander-in-Chief of the Navy. Sky. It's an honor to have you here. Sit down. Dustless said politely to Sky Commander. Sky Commander didn't talk nonsense and simply sat on the sofa, showing his ability as a soldier, and went straight to the subject. Sengoku and Garp both submitted their resignation reports to me, as if they had discussed it beforehand. Speaking of this, Sky Commander's voice paused, and after seeing Dustless's face as usual, he sighed and continued with a deep headache. There is only one Marine Fleet Admiral. Sakazuki and Kazan are both candidates with good qualifications, and they represent 2 forces. Akiji has the support of Sengoku and other Marines, and Akainu has the support of world government officials. I'm afraid that Gora CI and Sky Commander will have a headache over who to choose. If it's not done well, it may cause a Marine crisis, and it's not impossible for the huge Marine to fall apart. It's better. Staring at Dustless, Sky Commander said his inner thoughts. The position of Fleet Admiral is given to you. Whether it's Akiji, Akainu or Borsalino, the entire Marine will be convinced. For world peace and the balance of the Marine, the task of Fleet Admiral falls on you. You are the oldest Admiral, and Akainu and the others are not as good as you. Sky Commander's tone is full of hope. Dustless has countless benefits to sit in the position of Marine Fleet Admiral, and the strength of killing Whitebeard shocked the world. Do you think I look like a person who is a Fleet Admiral? Looking at Sky Commander's serious face, Dustless said the same thing as Sengoku. Dustless said, I can understand your mood, but I am a lazy person, and such a tiring position is not suitable for me. With that, Dustless looked at Chief Commander Kong. The latter's face, which was as rough as dead tree bark, was immediately replaced by disappointment, and his spirit was also rather dispirited. Dustless was indifferent when he saw this. He was thinking about the future of the world. The strength of the pirates had been weakened by him without limit. This war of the best was actually a great purge launched with the help of Blackbeard and Whitebeard. Now it's time to clean up the navy, and in the future when he rules the world, there will be less resistance. In fact, how to choose between Akainu and Akiji, I have a good plan. The light sentence was like the dawn of dawn. The disheartened Marshal Kong became spirited again and asked with great interest, I hope it's a good idea. This is very simple. Since they both have support, then let's have a fair and just battle. The winner will take the position of Fleet Admiral, and the loser will obey unconditionally. Dustless looked straight into Commander Kong's eyes as he laid out his strategy. It's difficult for them to cooperate in the future, Commander Kong said with a little dissatisfaction, and his hope was lost. He thought what Dustless said was a wonderful plan, but it turned out to be such a bad idea. Some things are destined to be unchangeable. Even if we forcibly twist them together, it won't help. So it's better to let the two of them compete. This is the best strategy. Dustless smiled and said, it's better to ask Sakazuki and Akainu. I think they will agree with this approach. This is the most effective way. After a moment of silence, Commander Kong was speechless. His eyes were shining and he was a little moved. Although he knew that this was a bad idea, it was a good strategy. Just like what Wu Chun said, the winner was king. In the world where the strong are respected, this is the most appropriate way. Since that's the case, I'll arrange an island in a few days, and let them decide the victor. His cold eyes emitted a threatening aura as Commander Kong made up his mind. No matter how Sengoku tried to persuade him, he still chose to abdicate. The position of Fleet Admiral was extremely busy. Did that Z guy take away something incredible? Dustless changed the topic to Z. Shortly after Z left, Akiji and Kizaru chased after him. Apparently, they took something extraordinary. He took away the information of the moving rock. So I sent Kazan and Borsellino to chase after him to prevent him from doing anything stupid. General Kong couldn't help but say. After all, Z was his former subordinate. After chatting for a while, Commander Kong returned slowly. Master, it's late, you should go to bed. At this moment, a beautiful voice suddenly came. The maid Perona, who was responsible for rubbing his legs, said, Sleep? Will you accompany me? Dustless teased and returned to his casual appearance, which made Perona stomp her feet. Walking to the window, Wu Chen looked at the back of General Kong with deep meaning. Wu Chen keenly smelled a different meaning. This was definitely not as simple as the power rock. Even if it's really the power rock, it's not necessary to send two admirals. The Whitebeard pirates collapsed and war broke out everywhere. Now when they need manpower, Akiji and Kizaru inexplicably left, indicating that there is a problem. Especially the unnatural way he talked about Z. Wu Chen saw it deeply in his eyes. Usually, Commander Kong was like an iron man. He rarely showed any emotional fluctuations. Chapter 877. Although Commander Kong's concealment was extremely clever, he still couldn't escape Dustless's insight. Especially Commander Kong, he couldn't escape Dustless's observation. It's strange, Hancock suddenly said. What's the matter? Dustless looked up and immediately frowned. Suddenly there was a burst of hurried footsteps downstairs. Dustless went to the bed and subconsciously looked down. Late at night, the port that was closed, countless battleships set out together. It seems that something terrible happened. The Marines who boarded the ship at the port seemed to be ordinary goods. Dustless, who was in a good situation, caught Garp's figure. He also joined this group of people, and the direction of departure was the same as Akiji and Akainu. Without exception, the purpose is to find Z's trace. Marine's hero Garp also inexplicably left, his whereabouts are unknown. Hancock said. Dustless's sleepiness disappeared when he heard that. His thoughts turned rapidly in his mind, thinking about the people who had contact with Z, but he didn't realize that something was wrong. That man joined forces with the pirates. White Zetsu suddenly came out of the ground and Khalifa and Pero were shocked. Hancock, who often comes in contact with White Zetsu, didn't change her expression. She was used to Dustless's mystery, or Hancock has long been numb to it. Doesn't Admiral Z hate pirates very much? How could he join forces with pirates? Khalifa's eyes flashed with suspicion. Pirates destroyed Z's life. Even if he cooperated with someone, he wouldn't fall to the point of being with pirates. I have also heard some rumors about Admiral Z. Even if he cooperates with a person like the young master, it is absolutely impossible for him to be in the same boat as a pirate. Pero's finger touched her smooth chin, and she also deeply agreed with him. You too. Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry at the two women. Although he was despicable, he was sincere to his own people. When it came to these two, he was so unbearable. Nothing is impossible in the face of absolute benefits. Dustless's thumb tapped on the table rhythmically as he pondered for a long time. His face showed endless wisdom as he said in a deep voice, I know Z too well. He won't lower himself to cooperate with pirates. But when they come together, he can use them. In any case, they were just using him. It had nothing to do with cooperation. Who is the target of the cooperation? Red Hair Shanks or 100 Beast Kaido? No matter how weak the person he picked is, he should at least be a general, right? Wu Chen's eyes were as bright as stars as he asked expectantly. Dustless-sama, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed this time. 100 Beast Kaido is indeed Z's partner, but there are others. White Zetsu said in disbelief. It's not just 100 Beast Kaido. Everyone who has had a grudge with you in the past seems to have had something to do with Z. White Zetsu said with an ugly face. Z, that guy. Did he expect this day to come and premeditate it in advance? Dustless's face was slightly dignified. Edward Weevil just joined the Shichibukai in the last few days. So many allies appeared overnight. Obviously it's unusual. Perhaps many years ago he had seen the decay of the marine and had already made plans to set up another Shichibukai. This time, Edward Weevil joined the Shichibukai and detonated the powder keg. Master, are you not going to stop him? Admiral Z wants to use the kinetic rock to destroy the sea of the New World. Master, you are a marine, you can't just turn a blind eye to it. Hancock asked curiously while looking at Dustless. Hearing this, Wu Chen just smiled. Of course, he wouldn't allow Z to continue his nonsense. It was impossible for Z to destroy the New World. But this time, he really intended to turn a blind eye and pretend that he didn't know anything. Although I don't know for what purpose, that old guy Sengoku actually hid this mission from me. Speaking of this, Dustless's face was obviously gloomy. He sneered and said, This time, I will wait for that old guy Sengoku to beg me. The three women looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They sighed helplessly. Their young master is sometimes so capricious and childish. When he is in a good mood, he can play with you. When he is in a bad mood, he will suffer. The next morning, the sun was bright and there were no clouds in the sky. After the war in the Marine headquarters, Dustless became unemployed again. He was idle at home all day and once again restored his previous identity. Despite this, he lived a leisurely life all day. Master, there is a Shichibukai coming to visit. Reading the newspaper on the sofa, he looked up at Hancock and asked, Shichibukai? Hawkeye and Doflamingo are here. I remember they all left Mariehua. I am not familiar with other Shichibukai. Hancock snickered, and her beautiful eyes flashed cunningly. Obviously Wu Chen guessed wrong. Young master, we have met before. Seeing that Dustless couldn't remember, Hancock handed over an envelope. An unexpected name suddenly floated into his eyes. The confusion in Dustless's eyes also converged. At present he was indeed in Mariehua. Chapter 878. At present, there are only two pirates who have been given the title of Shichibukai in Mariehua. One is King of Clowns Bucky, and the other is Edward Weevil. Dustless barely has an impression of Bucky. Taking the envelope handed by Hancock, it is more appropriate to say that it is a photo. The character is also quite funny, with a big red nose, which is particularly conspicuous and eye-catching. Naturally, it is the 7 warlords of the sea. Great God, Bucky. It's strange that he would come to me. Dustless muttered to himself in surprise. It's strange that the young master knows him. Hancock did not understand. In her impression, Dustless does not know such a small character. The people who can contact Dustless are at least at the level of Vice Admiral. Tell him to come in. Wu Chen waved his hand and said decisively. Hancock heard the words and bowed slightly to Dustless, and then walked away with elegant steps. Pulling an inexplicable person is dangerous for ordinary people, but it is harmless for Dustless. As long as Bucky dares to rebel, it is estimated that he will end up like Whitebeard. After about 10 minutes, there was a burst of messy footsteps in the quiet corridor, and Dustless, who closed his eyes to cultivate, revealed his clear eyes. Under this keen and indifferent eyes, just a glimpse, the secrets hidden in the heart can be revealed to the world. Then a few seconds later, Bucky and Hancock, who were dressed ridiculously, entered Dustless's eyes, and they looked obviously much older than before. Sit down. You have become one of the great pirates of the 7 warlords of the sea. Congratulations. Dustless showed a polite smile, giving people a gentle feeling at first. Bucky nodded and sat down naturally, and immediately felt that the sofa under his buttocks was quite soft, and the first impression he gave was as childish as a child. What are you doing here? Dustless asked when Bucky was silent. Immediately he looked at him deeply, and his face was indifferent. You are not looking for me to talk about the old days. Of course not, I'm also a busy man. Bucky shook his head like a rattledrum. After pretending to think for a while he said, I'm here to talk business. Business? Hearing this, Dustless's face became cold and his tone was a little cold. You, a pirate, want to do business with a marine admiral? With all due respect, this joke is not funny at all. It's extremely vulgar. Dustless did not hesitate to mock and ridicule. He was this kind of person. One second he could call you brother, and the next second, he could fall out with you. Besides, you're a hardcore fan of Red Hairshanks. We once interned on One Piece Roger's ship, and my relationship with him is well known, especially when I recently killed Fire Fist Ace and Nether King Rayleigh. Bucky looked stiff. He didn't expect Dustless to know about the implementation of the Roger Pirates. That was 10 or 20 years ago. Now, I have already parted ways with Shanks, and we are all independent kings, Bucky said in a very positive tone. I hope so. A Shichibukai colluding with Yonko, for emperors, is not a small crime. Say what you want. After staring at Bucky's eyes for a long time, Dustless's tone was a little curious. He reluctantly accepted Bucky's words. He was more interested in the business in Bucky's mouth. I hope it's not the kind of bad business involving Bailey. Otherwise, my hands will not listen to me. Dustless looked at Bucky with a deep look and added a threatening sentence. The former Admiral Z defected from the Marine, and he still has something in his hands. Bucky stood up and said to Dustless. He thought that Dustless would be surprised, but his performance was dull, and there was no extra expression on his face. That's all you want to say? Dustless asked quietly. His tone was like a machine, and there was no joy, anger, sadness, or joy. But Hancock, who was familiar with Dustless's nature, knew that this was the precursor of Dustless's anger. Without a reasonable explanation, they will face a hurricane of up to 100 degrees. It's far more than that. Bucky, who seemed to realize that Dustless was wrong, hurriedly said, I mean the specific pirates who cooperated with Z. See the guest out. Glancing at Hancock, Dustless said very uninterestedly, Whitezetz's clones are all over the world, and it's only a matter of time before they know who Z is working with. Please. Hancock mercilessly gestured to Bucky to leave, indicating that he could leave now. That I haven't. Please don't force me to use force. Seeing that Bucky was still so insensible, Hancock said bluntly. Hearing this, Bucky saw Dustless taking a nap on the sofa and could only leave in disappointment. The price of angering Dustless, he couldn't afford it. Not only him, but I'm afraid that few people in this world can bear it. In short, Bucky didn't want to lose his life here. After a short while, Wu Chen opened his eyes, and an extremely awe-inspiring sheen flashed through his eyes. Of course, there was also a wisp of unexpected surprise. Really, I can't figure out if the Gorosei are getting worse and worse. They even found this guy to be a Shichibukai. No matter how many pirates there are, they won't find such a person. Hancock said after coming back. Idiot, don't underestimate him. He was deliberately pretending for me to see. There is a deeper meaning. After a short thought, Dustless understood Bucky's risky move. You're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.